Alrighty, folks. Wait a minute. Wait a second. But welcome in. It is Friday once again with your buddy, your pal, your friend, Mike from PA. We are live once again. How is everyone doing today? We have Hasanabi made it out to Vegas and had a very long and far-reaching interview with AOC and Bernie. I feel bad for Hassan on that one. I mean, listen, it is what it is. Basically, what happened is they're politicians. They were late, and they decided to go to the rally instead of Hassan and do a longer Hassan interview. This is kind of one of my issues with AOC and Bernie Sanders, is they have some of the worst advisors that I've ever seen, like at least as far as internet messaging. And I have serious doubt. Like, I believe that I mean, I don't know how else to put this. I think we need more people to try to break into their circles that are not Elizabeth Warren type people. Like, they need to, like, it's just the advice they're getting is just so piss poor. You know, Hassan had 50,000 people. You know, when you have 5,000 people waiting versus 50,000 people, you should talk to the 50,000 people. And that's just math. You know, when you have 15,000 live people at a rally, that's really cool. And you should definitely consider how important that looks visually. But every single day, Hassan has 40, 50, 30,000, 60,000 or more that are there. You know, and I don't think that I mean, he's like half of Claudia Scheinbaum in her live shit, although sometimes she gets hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And I feel like the one thing about Hassan, and I mean this like with all love and respect, is that he's way too nice to people. Like, he has a lot of humility, and he's very kind, and he's very understanding. And I think that causes people to underestimate him. And I look at that and I'm just like, you know, it is what it is. But that being said, I'm glad they were able to. They're going to meet up again. You know, I'm sure it was a last minute thing that he proposed. You know what I mean? Like, that's why he was I mean, it is what it is. But they did get a good talk. The visual was nice. And, you know, we'll talk about exactly what was said. Here is kind of here's kind of my argument. Like, Bernie Sanders is doing something that's a win for us. I need to stop for a moment and say we're winning, okay? Bernie Sanders saying you should run as an independent is a half step from saying we should start a new party. Like, you get that? Like, we're winning, right? Like, I know I'm complaining because I'm not getting exactly what I want, but I want you to stop for a second and realize, wait, Bernie Sanders is saying maybe you should run as an independent? Bernie Sanders is saying maybe the Democrats are kind of shit. Now, he's saying, well, we don't want to, you know, third parties are hard to do, so we should probably try running as an independent. That's just an opinion that can be changed. That's not born into his soul, right? That's not something that he's born to die with, right? He just thinks in the moment, you know, it's probably easier to run and win as an independent than it is to run as a new party. And he's probably not even that wrong on that as far as like the immediate next election. And I don't think it's a bad strategy to do. You know, Dan Osborne did it and he almost pulled it off. You know, running as an independent in Nebraska, maybe you can't win, but what about running as an independent in Ohio? What about running as an independent in states like, you know, in Iowa, states that are not quite as red as Nebraska, right? Maybe, you know, you could win some races. The problem I have with the independent thing is you're not building a workers' power. You're not building an institution of grassroots power. You're building independent political charismas. You're not harnessing them. You have independent agents that are acting in their own interest. And I don't think that's the right strategy going forward. You're going to get a hell of a lot more Angus Kings than you are Bernie Sanders is under that strategy. And Angus King sucks. We need people power, not more like individual brands. See, look at how that worked with John Fetterman, right? John Fetterman, he stole the attention and the energy for the progressive left, and he got there and he's turned himself into Benjamin Netanyahu's personal senator. How many people would have been supportive of him who got him there if he had said to them, I'm not just going to be like kind of shitty on Israel, I'm actually going to be the worst senator on Israel. Like, nobody would have been like, yeah, I wouldn't have supported him. You know, it went from like, okay, he's a J Street kind of two-state solution guy. Not great, but, you know, better than the Republicans too. No, this guy wants to do a genocide. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the Bernie Sanders stuff. I kind of want to keep myself more sane. And then, you know, I want to just start attacking abundance neoliberalism. Abundance is just neoliberalism rebranded. Abundance is just, okay, we're no longer going to use these, like, you know, we're trans people, and we're no longer going to use like liberal environmental groups to attack people like Bernie Sanders. We're going to throw them under the bus along with labor unions to just directly serve the interests of the capitalist class. It's just even more radical neoliberalism. And my problem with the abundance, my question for the, like, basically fundamentally, the abundance movement is saying the best run city in America is what? Houston, Texas? Have you been there? What are you asking me? I agree with the one thing, one in the crowd yelling to AOC, what are you going to do? The rally just made me lose faith. Here's my problem with the rallies. I'm not against them. You know, guys, it's March. All right. It's March. You know, things are starting to bubble up. Okay. But here's my issue. You go to the rally, then what happens? Are you signed up to an organization? Are you signed up to do a local action? Are you signed up for a local endorsed politician? Are you signed up for a demand or a protest or, you know, a call to action? Do we all take out our phones and text anybody and call anybody? Do we do anything? What's the mobilization? What's the repeatability? Like, I get the psychological value and the media value of showing up in towns and having them fill up stadiums, okay, and arenas. I get that. But what is the next? What is the use of the energy? What is the channeling? Because right now it's just anarchist fervor, right? You know, I use the term anarchist fervor. What I just mean by that is leaderless energy and outrage, okay? Leaderless energy and outrage. That's good. We need that. That's important. That shows that you have legitimacy among the masses. But then what? And that's my problem. There's no and then what? And that is, you know, that is what I kind of question. A few chatters were at yesterday's rally. You should talk to them directly. Yeah. My DSA chapter put out hundreds of sign up, get involved posters, and a bunch of members will be trying to recruit at today's Bernie rally. Absolutely. I think what you should be doing. You should absolutely be doing that. Hassan mentioned that people kept asking, what do we do during the rally? The people needed a plan of action, not just platitudes. They needed to know what is to be done to succeed. Exactly. Is there... I mentioned you on the Haas stream. Condom hummus. Condemn hummus. Thank you so much. Can you link me your clip? Oh, what should have happened is announce a dirty break, then go on a tour to recruit. I think it's a little bit early for that. I think here's my thing. I see my role as saying what needs to be done and then pursuing that, in my opinion, right? And what I think needs to be done is one of two things. Either we need a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party or we need a new party. And when I say hostile takeover, I mean attacking Chuck Schumer, attacking Hakeem Jeffries, and engaging in active and open civil strife in the Democratic Party, where we're like, this neoliberal needs to go, this is bad, John Fetterman sucks. Like, it needs to be hostile. Or you need to say fuck this and leave. And here's the thing with the hostile thing. You know, the neoliberals can leave the party too, right? Like, it's not like dirty break is only available to us. They could do it too. Now, I personally would love for them to do that, because I think that if they tried, that would actually destroy the right in America. But in France, when the Socialist Party of France, which was the center-left party, was in power and it got really unpopular, do you know what happened? The neoliberal centrists under Macron broke and formed their own party, right? So, you know, and they successfully became the second largest party, and then become the largest party. Like, the dirty break shit is just a tactic. It's not something that necessarily is left or right. It's just a tactic, which is when you think your faction would do better outside of the one of the major parties, you try to destroy that major party by supplanting it. It's just a tactic. It's not left. It's not right. It's a tactic. It's like an L-shaped ambush. You know what I mean? That's just a tactic. It doesn't inherently mean anything as far as politics. And the question is, what tactics should you be using? That's how you win wars. You win wars by correctly using tactics, which gives you strategic advantage, which leads to victory. Okay? You win battles by being better tactically in the fight and winning the fight, and you set yourself up to be better tactically by being better strategically, and you set yourself up to be better strategically by being better logistically. All those things build onto each other, right? You build onto each other. You build on from, and they flow in both ways. Tactical victories can give you strategic advantages. Strategic advantages can help you gain logistically. You have to be a master of all those elements. And I think right now I see a desperate lack of thinking strategically, thinking logistically, and thinking tactically. I see a lot of utopianism. I see a lot of, and what I mean by that is just like, I'm right morally, I'm right, argumentally or logically, therefore I win. And it's like, no, that's not how the world works, unfortunately. Mike, we need an isolated funding bucket so we don't pollute our day with the devs' constant paralytic donors. Here's a couple things. I think the traditional paid media is less effective than ever. I think, I don't know about you, but do you find yourself being swayed by, Facebook ads? I think a lot of this shit is less effective than ever. The American left is the most beleaguered position in politics ever. Not quite true, but certainly feels that way sometimes. Bernie should end every rally with an action task of his audience. I agree. That's what an organizer would do. Have you considered instead going to war with an army? You asked every colonel to form an independent battalion and then just kind of do what they want. I mean, that's what they used to do, though. Cinemark says Twitch is genuinely one of the very few places online that even allow leftist discourse. Yes, I know. That's why we have to be smart and not get ourselves in trouble, right? Like we have to lead ourselves a little bit away from we have to realize that, number one, this is just as important as the New York fucking Times. And I know that's cringe to say, and not me particular. I'm just saying the milieu of left-wing content creation on TikTok and Twitch is just as important as the New York Times. And we need to actually start treating ourselves with that level of seriousness and stop. And that includes me. I mean, I was talking to Vio yesterday, and I was just like, there's all these different aspects of development, right? And it's like, where do you feel like you are hitting your marks? It was more like I was asking myself that out loud. And it's just like, I'm not hitting my marks. I'm not hitting my marks. Is Kyle smoking crack with this one?
All right, guys, we got to talk about this. This is something that really caught my eye, and I'm curious what you all think of it. So Mind War is the name of this outlet by a guy named Jim Stewartson. And he oftentimes says things that pique my interest that, I have to look into. So what he says is there's already a tremendous amount of evidence that Trump is planning on declaring martial law on 4/20, April 20th.
Hitler's birthday? Okay, so we're doing a martial law on Hitler's birthday kind of thing? Okay.
He would do that via basically the Insurrection Act, which, remember, he tried to invoke the last time he was in office, but he was surrounded by people who are not insane. And they were like, we're not deploying, because the Insurrection Act will let you deploy the U.S. military in our own streets against our own people, right? It's martial law. It's what it is. And they said, we're not doing that. He tried to do it over George Floyd protests, and he was basically blocked by his generals. Thank God that he blocked him. But now he's got all the sycophants around him, and nobody's going to tell him no. Nobody. All right, ready? Let's go into the evidence. In this deeply alarming opinion piece in the San Francisco Chronicle, Brett Wagner, who served as a professor of national security decision-making for the U.S. Naval War College, raises the specter of Trump invoking the Insurrection Act and martial law.
I recently invited Greblo to a local gathering of PSL, DSA, SDS, PRSO, whatever else would come, to go get the same page and make us a coalition of orgs with explicit shared goals and tactics on making a widespread network across the state able to mobilize quicker. I think you should do that. What I want to do is get my LA chatters, or my Southern California chatters that are willing to show up. And I want to start getting a circle of local people that will participate in shit with me. It's not a cult. It's just more like people that will actually show up to things. I'm proceeding with talking to more LA, more senior DSA people. So I want to tighten myself up. I might tighten myself up as far as like being more precise in my behavior and maybe stop swinging at as many people. And just being a little bit more self-controlled, more regulated in certain ways, stuff like that. I advocate for all chatters to join an org and immediately demand an all-heads deck meeting among orgs. I mean, you know, have you applied for SRA in LA yet? Oh, no, I haven't, but do you know people in it? You should message me. Message me on Discord, or and then we'll talk about Signal or whatever.
So this is a San Francisco Chronicle article, and the title is Trump preparing to invoke the Insurrection Act? Signs are pointing that way. A joint Department of Defense and Homeland Security report will soon recommend whether or not to invoke the Insurrection Act over illegal migration. So this guy wrote an article on this topic. Ready? In his day one fusillade of executive orders, Donald Trump signed declaring a national emergency at the southern border of the United States. This includes the following clause dictating that Trump's designated supplicants, Kristi Noem at DHS, and abusive crusader Pete Hegseth, submit a report with recommendations about whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So a day one executive order he signed said the following. You ready? Within 90 days of the date of this proclamation, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall submit a joint report to the President about the conditions at the southern border of the United States and any recommendations regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. So he signed an executive order on day one saying, within 90 days, I want this report, and you guys are going to recommend do the Insurrection Act or don't do the Insurrection Act. Now remember, Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth are some of the biggest psychos in the administration and some of the biggest sycophants in the administration. And likely what...
Yeah, I always thought Kristi Noem was on the inside track for the VP, but she ended up in the internal security shit, which I would say I was too close by half. Basically, he didn't think she was a good face for Trumpism, but she was a good operator at the most senior levels, meaning she's a psychotic, loyalist fascist. I volunteered last night for the Bernie people at a speech at ASU. The ASU people at Bernie were shocked by the numbers. We had to turn away thousands of people, lots of older people, lots of very, very scared people. I feel a little bit better going around that energy, but boy, do I have a lot of work to do. Yeah. I mean, my main thing is I feel like I need to start getting leadership in some organizations. You know, I've always felt that as somebody who's always aware, as a person, you're always aware of your own deficiencies, right? You know, I know what my potential is and I know what I am now, right? And you know the gap between the two, right? And you're always the most harsh judge of your own self, right? And I know that I have certain flaws, right? And I think the flaws are not good flaws. Like my flaws, for example, are that I'm hot-headed, right? And so that means that, you know, I don't have like a naturally gentle way of dealing with people, which is not great. And I feel like online that part of my personality is amplified, whereas in person I'm a little bit more able to just let people, you know, talk to people, because I'm doing one-on-one shit. And, you know, when you talk to someone one-on-one, they're immediately humanized because they're a human being in front of you, and and you could like get more feedback from body language and like, you know, and tone of voice and things like that. When you're yelling at a chatter, you just see text. You don't see, you know, the tone. You don't see, you know, how they're addressing themselves and things like that. So I feel like, for me, that's important. The other thing is like just reputational maintenance. I don't do relational aggression, and I don't do relationship maintenance and you know, like I'm not constantly pinging people with like, how you doing, buddy? I love you kind of stuff, right? I'm very aloof, you know. I don't want to say that it's schizoid. I'm not schizoid. I'm not saying that I'm like completely detached. I'm socialized like a man, and it's bad. People that are good at working the room and working behind the scenes are people that kind of ping others and kind of maintain relationships and do things like that. I have to like learn how to nurture shit. I'm not good at that. But you have 1 to 2K DSA members in your community that'll consistently vote for you. Maybe, right? Like if I could get 25 to 50 people to show up for me on DSA in LA, then that'll be a good sign. We'll see. We'll see. And also, people need to show up and then properly, like, they need to also show up with the intention of listening to what I'm saying, not just being their own free agent, right? So, you know, I'm not interested in like 25 different chefs. You know what I mean? I need people that are going to, you know, serve the meal that I cook. It's a little bit of a different thing than most people expect as Americans. As Americans, everybody expects to join the team and be the captain, you know, player one. Not hostile takeover of DSA LA, just another prominent organizer. That's what I want to be. And I'm glad that lots of people have joined DSA on my behalf, but have they accomplished anything that I've said I want to accomplish? And that's not your fault. That's my fault. That's called failure to take advantage of my position. After community members spoke out at the Miami Beach City Commission yesterday, including Miami DSA and JVP South Florida, Mayor Stephen Miner has withdrawn his motion to end funding for O Cinema for screening No Other Land. That's fucking insane. What a freak. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is we're going to organize some shit. We're going to organize some shit. And I want to get I want us to have, fast forward 3 months after meeting DSA LA. This is a hostile takeover of DSLA. I mean, I may come to that conclusion, right? I may come to that conclusion. But I need to have 25 or 50 people show up for me, right? You know, you need to have people that will ride with you, right? Like that's the first goal, is not just for me to go in there and start giving orders. The first thing is for me to figure out who is in what position. I need a scouting report, but I also don't want to be I don't want to be the person that takes up other people's enemies without knowing what's going on. DSA Orange County is the problem chapter, not LA proper. I'm not very, I mean, not to dox myself, but Orange County's not close to me. I'm DSALA. Let me know where and when. I got 3 people, including me, who will ride. Well, now we're talking. Have you heard of Hugo? He's a complete shill. I mean, I don't know who that is yet. So here's the reality of where I'm at. I'm going to be completely honest about who I am. For the longest time, my approach toward organizing on this stream was as a platformist, which is another way of saying I just encourage people to get involved in their progressive and left-wing organizations that are local to them and start participating and just be a general recruiter without taking any contentious positions on any issue of dispute, right? Like, I haven't been saying, okay, everybody vote against this resolution and vote for this resolution and join this caucus and oppose this caucus. I haven't been doing any of that. Right? I've just been like, I'm a platformist. Join PSL, join DSA, join this, do that. I have just kind of generally put people in those directions. I haven't taken any positions. And I think that's good. However, in the future, it may require me to take positions, right? Like, it may require me to, you know, decide between group A and group B. And the way that I want to, you know, I don't necessarily want to join other groups, other people's groups. I would rather be somebody who has my own independent thing. And then we'll go from there. And then I'll decide what I want to do with it. But the first step first, I have to actually do it. And the reality is that I am burned out from my real life organizing from before I streamed. The reality is that I know exactly how hard the fight really is. I know what it means. I know what it's like to have local or, you know, politicians and people targeting you and how annoying it is. And so I need to just get over it and get back into it, because I've been enjoying, you know, doing my online organizing and doing my online show and having success there and being validated in the reality that, oh, I have a lot of people that are with me. You know, I was right. And having people, you know, support me has been helpful in regenerating that energy and that fire. And there was other personal stuff that was keeping me out of the game in Pennsylvania, you know, stuff that didn't have anything to do with politics, where I was just like, I don't want to be around those spaces right now. But now that I've done a change of scenery, you know, and I have other personal stuff that has like kept me from being able to do this. But it's been about 4 or 5 months since all that stuff has been dealt with, since I've moved. And so now is the time for me to get off my ass. Like I had good, valid reasons that weren't just I'm being lazy. Okay. Now, though, the only reason is I'm being lazy. And so that is why we have to change. And it is what it is. Before you started streaming, you didn't have enough people listening to you. And now the problem is we aren't concentrated geographically. I mean, I don't even really need that many people. I don't even need that many people geographically. Like, if you have 25 hard, people that are going to ride with you, that's a ton. I'm glad you have taken the time to heal. It's not just that. It's not just that. It was also other stuff, just like interpersonal stuff that I just didn't want to deal with anymore, And when you have people, the thing about me is I stick in people's minds. I'm not somebody that people just are neutral on. And sometimes that's good, but it also could be bad. And I'm not just meaning like people hate me. It's also when people really love you. You know what I'm saying? Like, when people really, when there's also like an excessive attachment that's unwanted. That's also another factor. Like, it's uncomfortable. It is what it is. And so you could start, say, a central committee in LA and smaller communities in other cities where enough chatters live. Yeah, I don't know if that's what I want to do. I don't know that we have the numbers to do that. I think we've never had a belief that you wavered on an issue. I mean, I have plenty of things that I'm unsure about. Did you take a look at the Kill Gaza bill by Lindsey Graham that Bernie Sanders co-signed? It's a horrible bill, and Bernie supporting it is really, really bad. I did hear about that, but the only thing I've seen is kind of hysterical social media posts, so I haven't seen good analysis of it yet, and I haven't read it myself, so I haven't talked about it yet because I just don't, The times where I'll make mistakes is when I allow people to just insert their interpretation of something and then hand it to me, and then I read it out loud and react. That's where I'll make a mistake. Whenever I get whenever I've made mistakes in the past, it's me just like trusting shit without actually verifying first and like letting an emotional reaction occur based off of that. That's something that I need to not do. Also, the other bad thing that I'll do is I'll see somebody post something really stupid, and then I'll put them in the stupid box in my mind, and then I'll be like, this person's a fucking idiot, and I will go to town on them, which is a little bit much. I need to not do that. Sometimes people, sometimes I'll like overinterpret what they're saying. You need to not do that. So these are flaws that I'm trying to work on, which is just like respect, kindness, let people be wrong about things, allow them to say dumb shit and just let it roll. Don't hurt your own reputation because you hate anarchists. And here's the thing about anarchists. I don't actually hate them. I like anarchists. I do. I just hate the intellectual arguments, which is not quite the same thing, right? Like, I don't think that they're right. Like, the ideas behind them are wrong. It's not that I hate the people, and a lot of them are very good and smart and empathetic and good organizers and really cool people. I just don't agree with anarchist thought, and I think it's harmful as far as like the left in general. So I need to change. I need to understand that people, just because of their life experience, ended up in an anarchist position, doesn't mean they're like bad people. So that's kind of another thing that I'm trying hard not to get better on. What do you recommend for those who want to get involved but live in a rural area, would have to travel multiple hours just to be part of a leftist community group? The issue with that is you're just in the middle of fucking nowhere. Luckily for you, we have something called the International World Wide Web. And so you can participate in organizations and groups online, and you can participate and do activities and tasks online, But if you're in a rural area, what I would suggest is, maybe build yourself a leftist training camp where we can come and shoot guns. Join the closest org you have, and they will have meetings you can attend virtually. Sure. The Graham Gaza thing was SR 72. It came from the Foreign Relations Committee that Bernie is not on and passed under unanimous consent. Bernie did not support it. It just had hyper online leftists hating on him. I mean, if he gave it unanimous consent, then he gave it unanimous consent, right? I have been asked by a few people to comment on how China should view and react to Niger's soft nationalization of Chinese state-owned oil fields in Niger, as well as its expulsion of Chinese officials. My answer deeply connects to Doji's answer here. Niger did this because it views China as a rich country, but an unserious power that would be unable to act in any credible way to stop it. As I said the past month, China's complete lack of action in a region where it does have vast economic interests, Congo, Rwanda, sent a clear message. If you're Niger and you're seeking an easy payday, why not just take what you think you can seize? You know there will be no real threat or serious action coming. The non-interventionism policy is reaching its final era. Xi's successors will have to be more aggressive in a multi-polar world if China is indeed serious about the concept. I mean, my feeling about this is like my immediate sympathy is with Niger. That's my immediate reaction. My immediate reaction is capitalists getting their shit taken. Niger, thank you. Is yeah, too bad, boo-hoo, you tried to steal their oil, so sad, so bad. But I don't know enough. That being said, for China to be able to build lasting connections with the rest of the world, they also have to be we have to have a certain amount of respect and mutual benefit. China is a fence sitter? No, they're not a fence sitter at all. China is not a fence sitter. They are a country that is attempting a strategy which is mutually beneficial non-intervention. That's not fence sitting. That's called treating people how you want to be treated. The golden rule. That's not fence sitting. All right. Anyway, long story short about the rambles about politics, which is I would like us to be more involved, and we need to start creating an actual left-wing politics that is focused for the long term. Big news! Virginia Fox. Pretty snazzy car, Elon Musk. Sleek, curvy, sexy. I'd do anything to get in and never get out. Even if it died on me in a year or two. The Tesla ain't half bad either. Trying to run his Riz game on Virginia Fox. That's like a dog chasing a car. You know what I mean? Like running your Riz game on Virginia Fox is like a dog catching a car. And then what happens when it stops? And your mouth closes around the tailpipe. Like what's gonna do when Virginia Fox hits you up with DMs, Brace? What are you gonna do? What the fuck are you gonna do when she hits you up and says, I'm ready? What are you gonna do, bitch? I don't think they make a blue chew strong enough. They would need to titrate it directly into your bloodstream. You can't hang. I don't think a man has been born horny enough. And his name is Mehmet. So, like, he's in the running. Okay, what were we going to talk about? Oh, yeah, Donald Trump is going to declare martial law and we're all going to die on Hitler's birthday.
What they're doing with this report is, what do we think Trump wants to hear?
I have met the men horny enough, true.
What do we think he wants us to say? And that's what they're going to put in the report. On Wednesday, and I can't believe I'm saying this with a straight face, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard made a big show of landing at the border of Mexico, which is a pretty remarkable thing all by itself. Why would people in charge of our national defense be meeting there? The plan, as I've reported now for months, is to create a North American empire from Greenland to Colombia. Trump's tariffs and horrific abuse of America's neighbors, the belittling of Trudeau, the saber-rattling at Mexico, Greenland, and Panama, are all pretext. And so he's talked about this before in detail. There was this ideology called technocracy, which basically started, I believe, in the 1930s. And the idea was politics is too messy, democracy is too messy, politicians are too messy. What we basically need is to be led by technicians and engineers and like scientists, and they make all the decisions. And they came up with this idea called the Technate of America. And the Technate of America, ready for this? This is the scary part. The Technate of America stretches from Greenland, down through Canada, down through the US, and it goes all the way to, I believe, Colombia. Almost all of those places, Trump has been warmongering with. Panama, Greenland, Canada. So it looks like he actually is laying the groundwork to try to create the Technate of America. Now, to make it even scarier, you have the grandfather of Elon Musk was a Nazi. He was interested in and believed in the Technate of America, right? And it looks like it may have been the case. Elon was named after some character in some Nazi sci-fi book named Elon. And
is that
it looks
true?
like
Mike, I may be crazy for this, but I think the U.S. is a paper tiger. I don't think they have the industrial capacity to accomplish what Kyle is describing. What do you think? Okay. The United States of America has a lot of advantages in war that no other country has. And it's not the advantages that you think. The advantages that the United States has in war is that it has logistics capability. So we're talking about ground transport, airlift, and sea lift. And it has an incredibly large arsenal of nuclear bombs, right? So the United States of America has the ability to project and operate and like basically start wars that no other country in the world can start, right? Almost every country in the world right now lacks anything equivalent to what the US could do. Now, China has been building stuff up, but they've been focused more on theater specific capability. So what does that mean? It means like China wants to be able to win a war in China's backyard, right? China doesn't want to win a war against the United States in Brazil, or China cannot win a war fighting, in Israel. They could fight a war and win in Taiwan, but they couldn't fight in war and win in Mexico, right? Like that's the difference in the way the military structure of China versus the United States. China is like, we want to be able to beat the United States, would go toe to toe in our backyard. That is their focus, right? But the United States is focused on how do we dominate, how can we project power and challenge regional forces in any region, and that is what our military is structured around. And I think a lot of countries, especially countries like Mexico and Canada, don't seriously take the threat of U.S. military intervention in their country, because they think that they're above a certain level of importance and development and size and Western orientation, that would be ridiculous. Like, why the fuck would the United States attack Canada? That's insane. That's what Canadians think, right? Like, we're white, we're rich. Why would you attack us, right? It doesn't even make sense. We're friends. That's their belief. They don't have the capability to fight the United States. So with a certain level of demented leadership in America, nothing's off the table. Now, I think that Mexico would be far better at waging an insurgency against the United States over the long run than Canadians would be, for a variety of reasons. But I think invading Canada would be a world historic blunder, or doing anything aggressive to Canada or even Mexico, I think would be a world historic blunder, because it would force a lot of countries that hate Trump but love the United States to finally, it will be that moment when they're like, oh no, we can't. Yeah, the United States is crazy. Like, if you're Portugal or you're Germany and you see the United States invading Mexico or Canada or Greenland or whatever, you have to be like, okay, this is insane. We have to build our own independent power. We can't rely on this unhinged country. If you're Japan, if you're South Korea, you're Australia, you have to be like, oh, these guys are fucking nuts. So I don't think that would happen. That's why I don't think it would happen, because the United States of America, its strength is that the United States itself is a very strong country, right? But the real strength of the United States is not just that the U.S. is strong, which it is. The strength of the United States is that it's allied with so many strong countries already that there's no credible bloc that you could create that could challenge the United States, except for like China, right? China is a big enough country and power that in and of itself, with no other allies, it could challenge the United States and the US's allies, right? That's why China is the only competitor that scares the US. No other group could do that. However, if Trump were to do something as stupid as try to attack these countries, then Europe as a bloc is strong enough and economically powerful enough that it could challenge the United States, right? But right now, Europe is a junior partner. Europe is a junior disarmed partner. So part of the strength of the United States is not that it necessarily controls Europe, but it has so much influence over Europe that it might as well control Europe. And Europe is basically disarmed and unorganized. So Europe can't really challenge the United States quickly. And that's part of what makes the United States powerful is, Europe, if properly organized and unified, could challenge the United States bar for bar, toe to toe. But they aren't, and they're not organized that way. So, and European leadership, this is the other thing. It's basically been a generation of European leaders that have been raised in the Atlanticist religion, which is basically the idea of the, quote, Western world. You've probably heard that phrase before, the Western world, right? So all the leaders of of Germany and France and the UK and Spain and Italy, they're all focused, and other, various European leaders, they're all focused about how great America is and how we love America and we've got to work with America. All the leaders of all the major parties are pretty much pro-American. And so to shake themselves out of that would require a massive, massive crime being shown to have been committed against someone of a similar situation, and that the population of Europe would have to reject America in a fundamental, coherent, and unified way. I don't think they're ready. That's happening yet. I think a lot of people dislike Trump, but they separate Trump from America. They don't say, like, I think America is our enemy. They think, I fucking hate Trump and he's a dumbass and he's a piece of shit. And I can't believe America elected such a moron. And what's wrong with Americans? But the hatred of America hasn't actually firmed up, right? And so, and that is why, I'm so skeptical of this, because I think it would be so unhinged and actually significantly, it would basically knock America down from hegemon. Because the moment that Europe and Latin America and, the East Asia, as the moment those countries start going, oh, the United States is dangerously unhinged and we need to reevaluate, that's the moment that America is no longer hegemon. The moment Europeans start saying we're going to defend European interests and against America, then America is no longer a hegemon. Then America is just a superpower. And so what makes the difference between America as a superpower and America as a hegemon is diplomacy. Diplomacy is why America is the hegemon. We're not militarily dominating these countries and threatening them, right? They are aligned with us consensually. And so I just don't see this happening, because it would be so insane and so stupid that it would actually knock America down so significantly. European military work on 5 to 10 year plan to replace US and NATO. Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This is the type of shit. This is from yesterday. This is the type of shit that would knock America down from a hegemon to a superpower, right? Which is the moment the Europeans start saying our interests are not the same as America and America is dangerous and we need to contain America, that's when America is no longer a superpower or a hyperpower, but becomes a superpower again. And by the way, 5 years goes by in an eye blink. When you're young, when you're like 25, you're like, wow, 5 years, that's a long time. No, it's not. Europe's biggest military powers are drawing up plans to take on greater responsibilities for the continent's defense for the U.S., including a pitch to the Trump administration for a managed transfer over the next 5 to 10 years.
In those, it's 80,000. It's actually 88,000.
Unwavering commitment to our
5. Now we have the who's doing a fantastic years. It's ready to go. They've already built much of what has to be built in terms of production, including the sheds. We'll ensure that the USA continues to dominate the skies. We've given an order for a lot. We can't tell you the price because it would give way to some of the technology and some of the size of the plane, good sized plane. This contract also represents a historic investment in our defense industrial base, helping to keep America at the cutting edge of aerospace and technology.
Oh, they're buying a new plane? Which plane are they buying?
Our allies
Does anybody know?
Calling constantly. They want to buy them also, and certain allies will be selling them, perhaps toned down versions. We like to tone them down about 10%, which probably makes sense because someday maybe they're not our allies, right? But I would like to ask Secretary Hegseth, who's doing a fantastic job. He's really been very inspiring in so many ways, and I must say that before he speaks, we have had record people wanting to join our military in the last 2.5 months, literally since this, I think probably since the election, November 5th, but especially since we came to office and since I announced Pete. He's young, he's smart, he's strong, he loves it, and they love him. But we've had record numbers of people wanting to join our military. Now, if you go back 6 months, it was the exact opposite. you had record numbers of people not wanting to join the military. Now you have record numbers of people wanting to be in our military. And that's a great honor. That shows you we're really on the right track. So, Pete, maybe you'd say a few words.
Sure.
Please.
Well, Mr. President, this is a big day. This is a big day for our warfighters. This is a big day for our country, a big day in the world. The name of this program is the Next Generation of Air Dominance. And Mr. President, because of your leadership, your clarity, America is going to have generations in the future of air dominance because of this 6th generation fighter. We've had the F-15, we had the F-16, the F-18, the F-22, the F-35. Now we have the F-47, which sends a very direct, clear message to our allies that we're not going anywhere, and to our enemies that we will be able to project power around the globe unimpeded for generations to come. Mr. President, this is a gift to my kids and your kids, to my grandkids and your grandkids. This is a historic investment in the American military, in the American industrial base, in American industry that will help revive the warrior ethos inside our military, which we're doing, rebuild our military, which the previous administration did not do, by the way, Mr. President. They paused this program, and we're prepared to potentially scrap it. We know this is cheaper, longer range, and more stealthy. President Trump said we're reviving it, and we're doing it. And then we are also going to reestablish deterrence. Under the previous administration, we looked like fools. Not anymore. President Trump has reestablished American leadership. The F-47 is part of it. And Mr. President, thank you for having the courage to do it and leading the way for all our warfighters.
Thank you very much, Pete. One of the things I will say, but the generals are going to speak in just a couple of seconds, but this plane flies with drones. It flies with many, many drones, as many as you want, and it's a technology that's new, but it doesn't fly by itself.
Yeah, this strategy has been cooking up. They call it I think they call them collaborative drones, basically the fighter almost flies in formation with drones, so if it engages in combat with other fighters, it it creates a whole dogfighting is not the same when you have auto wingmen, right, that will sacrifice themselves, or so it's almost like a drone mothership. And my response to that is why don't you just have drones then? Drones are just better. If you know anything about fighter planes, you understand that one of the main weaknesses of a fighter plane is the circulatory system of the pilot. The pilot will black out because of making maneuvers. So if you just engineer a drone that could do 20 Gs, you could basically, it could just outmaneuver these piloted planes, unless they have some sort of new technology to increase the G load a pilot could take. Dogfighting has been dead since the Iran-Iraq war, but you still do high G maneuvers to dodge missiles, man. When a missile is targeting you, pilots will pull high G maneuvers to try to make the missiles track onto countermeasures and not get shot down. So even when you're not dogfighting, you still need to maneuver at high Gs. Fighter pilots wear special suits. Yes, of course. They're called G suits.
Flies with many drones, as many as we want, and that's something that no other plane can do. So I'd like to introduce, if I might, Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin, and also General Dale
There was
White.
a famous fighter pilot who was double amputee and was able to pull more Gs because he didn't have legs. How did he manipulate the rudder pedals? Did he have how did he manipulate the rudder? I guess they redesigned the rudder for him. They gave him different rudder controls.
Two incredible people that I've known over the years, but I got to know them really well over the last few months. And would you say a few words, please, General?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for your unwavering commitment to our military.
Fox McCloud has RoboLeg. Oh, it's Fox McCloud. Okay.
This is a big day. This is a big day for our United States Air Force as well. Air dominance is not a birthright, but it's become synonymous with American air power. But air dominance needs to be earned every single day. And since the earliest days of aerial warfare, brave American airmen have jumped into their machines, taken to the air, and they've cleared the skies. And whether that be clearing the skies so we can rain down destruction on our enemies from above, or we can clear the path to the ground forces below. That's been our commitment to the fight, and that's really been our promise to America. And with this F-47 as the crown jewel in the next generation air dominance family of systems, we're going to be able to keep that promise well into the future. I also want to thank everyone from industry and within government, our engineers, who have worked tirelessly on this program to bring it where we are right now today. This shows that American talent, American skill, and American determination are second to none, because this platform is second to none. So we believe that this provides more lethality, it provides more capability, more modernized capability in a way that is built to adapt. This, along with our collaborative combat aircraft the President talked about with drones.
Yeah, collaborative combat.
This is allowing us to look into the future and unlock the magic that is human-machine teaming. And as we do that, we're going to write the next generation of modern aerial warfare with this. This enables us to do this. The manner in which we put this program together puts more control in the hands of the government, so we can update.
So my first reaction to this, is, why would you not just have AI weapons that are totally automated? That would be faster than any command. Like, a computer could operate at a much faster, they could process information before you and I even know something happened. AI could take the information, process it, and make a decision. Why do you even have me in the loop at all? Like, the advantage will be to drone systems and Skynet that makes decisions faster. Why don't we just have completely automated weapons? They'll make decisions, and they'll make the decisions, and they'll win the fight. I mean, if we're doing this kind of logic, right? Like, it seems to me, you would just want automated weapons.
And adapt at the speed of relevance, at the speed of technology, not at the speed of bureaucracy. This is more Air Force. This is more options for the President. We say as our mission in the United States Air Force is to fly, fight, and win air power anytime, anywhere. If you want to go anywhere, you have to have a platform that gets you anywhere. This provides the President options from the very one end, which is a quick response, and then we can get right back into fighting stance without having to deploy troops that are going to take maybe months and cost more lives. We can be back in fighting stance, and maybe we restore that deterrence. All the way to decisive victory as part of a joint force that is the most lethal and capable military ever known in history.
Hey, that's Kamala Harris's campaign.
And this allows us to provide it into the future. It's more deterrence, more capability. It's what peace through strength looks like into the future, Mr. President. And so we're very proud to do that. And all we can say is, on behalf of the United States Air Force, let's deliver.
Thank you very much. Thank you, General. Would you like to say something?
That's right. I'll just double down what the chief said.
He knows what to do.
Generational
He knows who the boss is.
That's exactly right. Air superiority is what it's all about, and this is what we'll deliver.
That's great. Thank you very much. Great
It's
job.
so funny to see Trump, who is a non-military guy, kind of, a city liberal, interacting with military officers. Because the culture of military officers is a lot different than businessmen. And so businessmen are so enamored with military discipline, and it's very creepy and kind of homoerotic the way Trump acts towards generals. It's very funny.
We've worked together long and hard on this, and this was a...
Immediately proven right! Immediately proven right!
That's
exactly right.
Thank you very much. Thank you, General. Would you like to say something?
That's right. I'll just double down what the chief said.
He knows what to do.
Generational
He knows who the boss is.
That's exactly right. Air superiority is what it's all about, and this is what we'll deliver.
That's great. Thank you very much. Great job. We've worked together long and hard on this, and this was a big secret. In fact, we don't show too much of the plane for that reason. You see what we show? You see how beautiful that is, but that's just a very small part of it.
Sure.
I wasn't surprised. I was wondering how much are you going to show if they came in with that. You see a wheel in the front? That's about it. Any questions?
Mr.
President Trump,
is
80,000 pages of documents is a lot to sift through.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us who killed Kennedy?
Well, I was given the task of releasing that because many presidents have gone through it and they haven't released. And I said, release. We even released Social Security numbers. I didn't
Our
want.
media is so fucking stupid. Like, here we are having this dumb conference about spending trillions of dollars, trillions with a T, on some new ridiculous weapon system. And they're asking about JFK files, like the dumb fucking losers they are. Jesus fucking Christ. I hate these people.
Want anything deleted. They said, so what about Social Security? People long gone, but they're long gone, so I can't imagine. But I said, if you
Mike,
don't...
here's your well-earned clip. This is a lot different than businessmen. And so businessmen are so enamored with military discipline, and
My hair.
it's very like creepy and kind of homoerotic the way Trump acts towards generals. It's very funny.
We've worked together long and hard on this, and this was a...
I mean, immediately proven right. Where was he? Where are we at? Okay.
delete it. If you do delete it, we have people are going to say, why did you delete it? There's something in there. So we gave Social Security, we gave everything. And the rest is for you to look at, Peter. You're going to see whether or not you see anything. But we've given it. We're doing it with Dr. Martin Luther King, too. We're preparing all of that. They're going to release everything. And whoever else they want. I mean, you know, we have nothing. We really have nothing to hide. We shouldn't have. You know, when a lot of time goes by. But with the Kennedy files, in particular, they were going crazy on them. I don't think there's anything that's earth-shattering, but you'll have to make that determination. In those, you know, it's 80,000. It's actually 88,000, and we have some additional things, as you know, come out today. And for that, you can go to the offices and you can see whatever you want to see. Everything is out there, totally open. The additional stuff is available later on today. You go over to the offices and you can have it immediately. And you'll make a determination.
And on something else, these Trinidad Aragua guys, because of your executive order, they are designated as foreign terrorists.
Yeah.
If ISIS or Al-Qaeda foreign terrorists were operating here in the United States, cops would probably be shooting first and asking questions later. And so what is the difference between terrorists, between somebody like an ISIS or an Al-Qaeda operative versus a MS-13 or Trinidad Aragua?
Well, these are people that focus on destroying people in their homes. They're not as international in that sense. They're a group of thugs. They come from Venezuela. They come from the prisons of Venezuela. They're very, very dangerous people, but they didn't look so dangerous when the...
Actually, MS-13 comes from the prisons of the United States, but... Who cares about the facts, right? We actually created the gangs here and then sent them back there. But who cares about the facts?
Guards took care of the situation from El Salvador, and I want to thank the president. He's a friend of mine. He's done a great job. But I just can't imagine that the Democrats are taking this issue where they want to have them back. You know, so now they have men playing in women's sports. They have transgender for everyone. They have open borders. They have all of their crazy policies that are, I think, 95-5, not 90-10, okay? And their new policy is, let's bring Trinidad Aragua back into our country. Let's bring the worst, these are the worst gang members there are. They looked amazingly frail, though, by the way they were handled. It's very amazing. You know, they weren't, when they were in Colorado cutting the fingers off a man because he made a phone call to the police, they seemed a lot tougher then than they did when they were having their head shaved and they were in shackles. They're tough people. They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. You know, he didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen. It'd be so bad for our country. I won on the basis of getting criminals out of our country that were let in. It was called unforced error. They were let in by Biden, incompetently let in, and let in by the millions, actually. 21 million people. I believe it's 21 million. And that's not even including the Gaways, but these are rough people. We want them out of our country. And I won the election based at least partly on that. And that's a big part, yeah?
I don't know if you saw this. Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh, boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. You know, I mean, the guy's a loser. He lost an election. He played a part. You know, usually a vice president doesn't play a part, they say. I think Tim played a part. I think he was so bad that he hurt her. But she hurt herself, and Joe hurt them both. They didn't have a great group, but I would probably put him at the bottom of the group.
Have you heard that Biden wants to get back involved for Democratic politicians, fundraising, and campaigning against your policies?
I hope so. I hope so.
Mr. President, there are several families from some of the people.
Who are you with?
I'm with La Nación newspaper from Argentina. There are families from some of the people that were on those flights to El Salvador that claim that they're not criminals, they're not members of Trinidad Aragua, of MS-13. What can you tell them, and what guarantees can you give them that everyone in those planes were actual criminals, terrorists, as you said?
Well, I was told that they went through a very strong vetting process, and that that will also be continuing in El Salvador. And if there's anything like that, we would certainly want to find out. But these were a bad group. This was a bad group, and they were in bad areas, and they were with a lot of other people that were absolutely killers, murderers, and people that were really bad with the worst records you've ever seen. And but we will continue that process, absolutely. We don't want to make that kind of a mistake.
Is the U.S. planning to give up the position of NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, and if so, why?
NATO is something that I saved. NATO was gone until I came along. In fact, the previous Secretary General, very good man. Both of them are good. The current man is fantastic. But both of them have said, if it wasn't for Trump, you wouldn't even have a NATO, because we were paying the cost of almost all of the countries. And now they're paying. I said, we're not going to do this. We're not going to continue. You hurt us on trade. You do bad things on trade. And then on top of it, we're supposed to pay for your military. And because of what I did, hundreds of billions of dollars flowed into NATO by countries that just weren't paying. They were delinquent. They weren't paying their bills. So NATO is solid. They're strong. But they have to treat us fairly.
Are we going to give up the...
Because, look, without us, NATO's not the
And
same
we're
thing.
giving-
And I can tell you, I've been having very good discussions, as you know, with President Zelensky and with President Putin. And President Putin will tell you that without the United States, he wouldn't be worried. But he is worried when the United States is involved. And I have to tell you, I've dealt very well with both gentlemen, and we have, I think we have the confines of a deal. I hope we have the confines of a deal. I'm doing it for two reasons. Number one, and by far most importantly, thousands of young people, and they're not American people, they're Russian and they're Ukrainian, are being killed every week, thousands a week. And also the United States has paid, because of Biden, $350 billion on a war that should have never happened. If we had a competent president in this, sitting right here, that war would have never happened. It would have absolutely never happened with me. And it didn't happen. For 4 years, it didn't happen.
Mr. President, do you think you have the authority, the power to round up people, deport them, and then you're under no obligation to a court to show the evidence against them?
Well, that's what the law says, and that's what our country needs, because we were, unfortunately, they allowed millions of people to come into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. So you ought to ask, did he have the authority to allow millions of people? Did Biden have the authority to do something that's unthinkable? Have open borders where millions of people poured into our country, totally unvetted and totally unchecked, just as you would say. And many of those people were criminals. Many of them were from jails and prisons and mental institutions and gang members and drug dealers and very dangerous people. Many were murderers. We have 11,088 that we know of murders they murdered. Of that number, at least half killed more than one person. They're in our country. They're in a location near you. Biden allowed that to happen to our country. And there's people that really ran the country. And the person that operated the autopan, I think we ought to find out who that was, because I guess that was the real president. So when you ask me if we have the authority, did Biden have the authority to allow millions of people to come into our country? Many of these people, hardened criminals at the top of the line, who have caused tremendous damage in our country. You see them in New York City fighting with our police. I mean, literally having fist fights in the street with our police. These are tough, hard criminals. Many of them came out of jails, and not just South America, from all over the world. They came out from Africa, from the Congo. They came out from Asia, not just South America, but many from South America. These are hard, tough criminals, and we have to get them out. And a judge sitting behind a bench someplace got a nice appointment. You can't take that away from the people that are responsible. Now, in this case, Marco Rubio has a lot of big decisions to make, and he's a fantastic person, a great man. I think he'll be our best. I think he has a chance to be our best Secretary of State. He's been doing incredible. He works so hard. He's gone to so many different countries already, and he's got the authority to get bad people out of our country. And you can't stop that with a judge sitting behind a bench that has no idea what goes on, who happens to be a radical left lunatic.
Do you think the judiciary...
You guys today are denying this New York Times report that Elon Musk was going to be shown a 20 to 30 page presentation about a theoretical war plan against China. Why not just show it to Elon?
Because I don't want to show it to anybody. You know, you're talking about a potential war with China. Now, I deal with these people all the time, and I'm dealing with Pete. I'm dealing with these gentlemen on numerous different airplane purchases, and I think they're all going to be great. But
my overall reaction to this is it's just like Donald Trump is a complete and utter freak, and talking to him is always a waste of time. Like, he just, you know, he gets asked direct questions and he just says dumbass answers, and there's never a follow-up. It's like, what is the proof? And he says, I was told. End of question. Oh, you were told. Well, thanks for the evidence, man. Like, Donald, we have now, like, we've all accepted that he just says shit. He doesn't say, like, I'm glad you asked that question, and I had my staff collect all the evidence we had on these individuals. Here's, for example, so-and-so on the plane was a member of MS-13. He had this tattoo. He was arrested by this. He did this. He was convicted of this. Like, there's no attempt to even bother. He just says, I was told, and it was vetted, and that's that. And either you trust Trump or you don't. Like, and I feel like we talked about the Grecian maxims before, where one of them is you just, you know, the thing that we do, whenever we have a conversation with people, is we assume good faith. It's just part of communication. Because the moment you're bad faith, the conversation has to end. Because there's nothing that you and I can do for each other. If you're willing to lie to me, if you're willing to manipulate me, I can't rely on anything you say. I basically need to get another party to verify. So, like, the moment you and I are engaged in bad faith disagreement, then there's no point in communication anymore. If I can't trust what you're saying is the facts, and you can't trust my responses, then why are we talking? And the problem with Donald Trump is he's already established that a million times over, but yet people keep coming back to him like he's going to tell the truth this time. And, like, so what do you want me to say? I mean, there's nothing more to say. He's lying. He doesn't even answer the questions, and then he just babbles bullshit.
I don't want other people seeing, anybody seeing potential war with China. We don't want to have a potential war with China, but I can tell you if we did, we're very well equipped to handle it. But I don't want to show that to anybody. But certainly you wouldn't show it to a businessman who is helping us so much. He's a great patriot. He's paying a big price for helping us cut costs, and he's doing a great
He's paying a big price. Donald Trump wants you to know, we are really ruining Elon's reputation. He's paying a big price. His stocks, they're going down. Did you know he's had 5 straight weeks of losses on the stock market, folks? 5 straight weeks of negative, another losing week for the S&P 500. Tesla, they were at $400 a share when I was sworn in. Now it's like $270. It's only been a couple months. That's a big loss. That's a big loss. That's hundreds of billions for Elon. Elon's is hundreds of billions of dollars poorer because of me. What a patriot. That's more money than I've ever seen. Oh, it's 243? Oh, Jesus. That's even worse.
Good job. He's finding tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. But I certainly wouldn't want, you know, Elon has businesses in China, and he would be susceptible perhaps to that.
Why even listen to the conference? They were announcing that they're investing trillions of dollars in a new fighter jet. And I wanted to hear what the generals would say and see, like, you know, if there was going to be any budget information or, you know, maybe, you know, that kind of thing. So don't worry. Potholes unpatched. But we will have the F-47.
It was such a fake story. The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. And anybody read that story, people laughed at that story. Who would do such a thing? And the first thing I did is I called Susie and I called Pete. I said, is there any truth to that? And they said, it's ridiculous. No, he's over there to talk about cost. You might want to address that, Pete. But Elon was over there today to address cost. Doge, thing called Doge, which you've heard about. Pete?
That's exactly right, Mr. President. You pointed out it was a fake story. We pointed out it was meant to sort of undermine whatever relationship the Pentagon has with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a patriot. Elon Musk is an innovator. Elon Musk provides a lot of capabilities our government and our military rely on, and I'm grateful for that. We welcomed him today to the Pentagon to talk about Doge, to talk about efficiencies, to talk about innovations. It was a great informal conversation. The rest of that reporting was fake. There was no war plans. There was no Chinese war plans. There was no secret plans. That's not what we were doing at the Pentagon.
I might add that I think Elon, if they ever wanted to do that, I think Elon wouldn't do it. I think he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't want to put himself in that position. But if you read what's out of the New York Times, it's such a dishonest newspaper. It's such garbage. It's, you know, it used to be called all the news that's fit to print. Well, it's all the news that's not fit to print. They have fake sources, or they don't have sources. I think they make most of it up. But this was a made-up story by the New York Times. I call it the failing. It's a failing newspaper. It's failing. And they shouldn't do that. They really are the enemy of the people.
And something else
We do need honest journalism in this. You know, we've made such big strides over the last 2 months, but we just need honest journalism, and we don't have it. When you have a CNN, you have to watch these people every once in a while just to see where they're coming from, and it's so dishonest. MSNBC is, I think, probably worse, and they're both doing horribly in the ratings. I think they're going to be turned off. I don't think, they're not doing any ratings. You're doing well in the ratings.
Thank you.
President,
I understand that you're a trade rep.
is meeting their Chinese counterpart next week.
Yes.
Is there anything that they can do to stop April 2nd or to roll back the tariffs that you put on China already?
Well, we can talk, but basically, I call April 2nd. I would have made it April 1st, but I didn't want to be April Fool's Day because then nobody would believe what I said, and they do believe me. April 2nd is going to be Liberation Day for America. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe. We've been ripped off on trade. We've been ripped off on military. We protect people, and they don't do anything for us. It's just so unfair for years and years. And now some of that money is going to be coming back to us in the form of tariffs. I mean, tens of billions. It's going to be numbers like nobody's ever seen. So NVIDIA announced today, you saw that, hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. The biggest chip maker in the world announced hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. Hundreds of billions, not millions, but billions. They're all coming here. Apple just announced $500 billion worth. They're going to build plants here. You know, they built their plants in China. They're going to build them here. And they're starting immediately. We have investment, the likes of which this country has never seen, already announced. And they all want to have news conferences. I don't have enough time to have that many news conferences. But I would say so far at least $4 trillion. $4 trillion is coming in. Car companies, very importantly, a lot of the car companies that were going to build in Mexico or Canada are now building here. Because I don't want cars from Canada. I don't want cars from Mexico. They want to do it, it's fine. But I want the car companies to build here, not, you know, they were building in Mexico 3 plants, big plants, really big plants. And they're going to sell the cars right across the border. We wouldn't have the...
NVIDIA stock slides as Chinese rivals close the performance gap. This is from this morning. Chinese AI groups are rapidly closing the performance gap with established U.S. titans such as NVIDIA. According to new figures from benchmarking and consulting firm Artificial Analysis, Chinese new kids on the block such as DeepSeek are making inroads thanks to their significantly lower prices as well as operational capabilities. These figures found that DeepSeek's reasoning model R1 scored 60 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index. That score made it the 3rd most intelligent AI model in the world behind ChatGPT makers OpenAI's O1 and O1 Mini, which scored 62 and 66 respectively. In terms of pricing for developers, DeepSeek R1 ranked 8th globally, while OpenAI's GPT 4.5 and O1 were listed as the 2 most expensive models. Uh-oh. And as far as like China was going to build factories in Mexico and import them in the United States, isn't that great, chat? They're not doing that. You can't buy a really nice electric vehicle for $20,000 anymore, or $18,000. Congratulations, guys. You have to buy a piece of shit for $45,000 with, you know, half the range and worse fucking options. Congratulations, guys. You don't get to buy a cheap electric vehicle that's high quality. You have to pay money to Elon for double the price for half the fucking car. Congratulations. Every single Cybertruck was just recalled today. Every single Cybertruck was just recalled today.
Jobs, we wouldn't have the profits, we wouldn't get the taxes, we get nothing. All we get is unemployment and empty factories. Those days are over. So now those 3 places are going to build here, but many more than that. We have a big one. Honda is building, just announced a really big plant in Indiana, great state, smart place to build. And we have many car companies coming here. The steel mills are going to be booming. And many other things, you know, many other things come with that. But we need that for defense. You know, there are certain things you have to have. You have to have steel. We would have had, if I didn't do in my first term tariffs to stop the onslaught, because they were dumping steel in order to destroy our steel plants. If I didn't do 50% and even 100% in certain cases tariffs on steel, you wouldn't have a steel plant in the United States. And Biden was unable to get rid of those tariffs because they threw off so much money that his numbers, which didn't work anyway, because his numbers were terrible. What he did, the way he spent money was so horrible, and what he allowed to happen to energy. That's the other thing. Energy is going to be like it's never been before. Mr. Vice President is here. Do you have anything to say while you're here? He's a very good Vice President.
I'm just here to watch the show, sir.
Okay.
I think airplanes are pretty cool, so I want to go check this out.
It is cool.
Oh my God. This is gayer than gay porn, dude. This is actually gayer than gay porn. Like, legitimately. I just think you're really cool, sir. Oh my God.
Should take off the trade war at this point, though.
He's doing tricks on it.
President Xi, I have a great relationship with him. We're going to have a very good relationship. But we have a $1 trillion deficit because of Biden with President Xi. More than that. I mean, I've heard $1.2 trillion. We have a deficit. And I've explained that to President Xi. We also have a problem where he's allowing fentanyl to be sent into Mexico and then cross the border and, you know, killing. I think the number is much higher than the 125, 115 that I think it's closer to 300,000 people a year. And so that's a problem. But they have a tremendous surplus against the United States, and we don't want that.
President, why do
A number of industries have come to you asking for exemptions on tariffs. Is that something that is under consideration by you? Well,
People are coming to me and talking about tariffs, and a lot of people are asking me if they could have exceptions. And once you do that for one, you have to do that for all. So, I mean, generally, I did something interestingly during 2 weeks ago. I gave the American car companies a break because it would have been unfair if I didn't. And everybody said, oh, he changed his mind on tariffs. I didn't change my mind. I helped our, sort of big three, big four. I helped some of the American companies. And instead of taking it properly, they said, oh, he changed it. I don't change. But the word flexibility is an important word. Sometimes there's flexibility. So there'll be flexibility. But basically, it's reciprocal. So that if China's charging us 50% or 30% or 20%, and I don't mean China, I mean anybody, any country, Canada. Nobody knows that Canada's charging our dairy farmers. They have 270% tariffs. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. They have up to 400%. They have a couple of tariffs at 400%. Nobody knows that. Nobody talks about that. And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that. Because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border. It would be a great state. It would be a cherished state. The taxes for Canadian citizens would go down in less than half. They don't spend money on military because they think we're going to protect them. There are many things that they do, like icebreakers. They want us to provide icebreakers for them. Oh, that's wonderful. So the Canada, they're very tough traders too. I want to just tell you, of all the people, they're tough traders. They trade very tough. And, the expression I use is some people don't have the cards. I used that expression about a week and a half ago, right? Somebody was negotiating who didn't have the cards.
Tesla is cooked. There was 300,000 leases are expiring in 2026. The resale value is set to crash even more. The Tesla value of Teslas is going to go to fucking zero, dude. I actually think Tesla is a worthless company. I think Tesla is actually a worthless company. I think it is going to be Trump's Enron. And I know a lot of people have been anti-Tesla for a very, very long time. Like, a lot of people have been like, this is an irrational grift. This is hype. This isn't based on anything real. But the problem is the hype was real. The average everyday person liked Tesla on net. Republicans were kind of neutral to positive about it, right? And left-wingers and liberals especially liked the idea of electric cars. And so Tesla also had like a cool factor with, like how well the cars perform. This is very early on, okay? This is not now. I'm talking about the past, okay? So there's a thing called the past, and people had opinions in the past that were different than they are today. I'm describing the opinions of the past, okay? These are not my current opinions, all right? Are we all on the same page? Do we have a theory of the mind together? Okay, so now thinking back to what opinions used to be on Tesla, people used, sorry about that, chat. I just had 5 seconds of F. Are we back? Okay. Yeah, I dropped 400 frames, so that was like 4 or 5 seconds. Sorry about that. Are we back? Okay, we're back. So in the past, people had different opinions, all right? And in those opinions, Tesla had come out with the Roadster, and then they had come out with the Model S, right? And then they had come out with the Model 3 and the Model Y and the Model X, and people were like, they were talking about releasing a Roadster and the Model 2, right? The Roadster and the Model 2. And the Model 2 was going to be like their super cheap, basically their version of a Prius, right? Which is like super low priced entry level electric car that would compete with the bottom end of cars and provide electric vehicles for people that were focused on price, right? And then they were going to put out the Roadster, which is the opposite. That is like the super high end version that would compete with like Corvettes and Porsche, compete with like, not even Corvettes, more like Ferraris. That would compete with Ferraris and shit, right? So the super high end Roadster, right? Instead, they said, fuck the Roadster, which would ramp up the cool factor, right? and the aspirational vehicle. Fuck that. Fuck the Model 2, which would represent like you know, competing on price at the low end, which is like, you know, where the mass adoption is, right? Fuck mass adoption. Fuck the super aspirational car. We're gonna put out the worst looking truck ever made with the worst performance ever made. A truck that can't tow with an aluminum frame and looks like a poorly rendered game from like a 2001 Xbox. So everything that made the, you know, Tesla a compelling company, you know, the idea of the robo-taxis from self-driving vehicles, the idea of competing with internal combustion engines on price and value, all of that is gone in favor of the worst truck ever made. And so now people are just, and then so, you know, from a business perspective, Elon was caught. You know, he ran out of runway. His promises were not fulfilled. Self-driving is not real. Robo-taxis are not happening. He's being outcompeted on all that shit. And he ran out of runway. And then he doubled down on the Cybertruck because he's a narcissistic lunatic. And because people made fun of it, he had to prove them wrong and went with it anyway, even though it's ugly and everyone hates it and its performance sucks, right? So now, you know, if he just had the Cybertruck and that was the only L, maybe Tesla could recover. But now Elon Musk has done the ultimate dumbass thing, which is he's destroyed his own hype for the company, right? He destroyed hype for the company by going after the people that buy his cars. Who is the type of person that bought a Tesla in its heyday? It was white, upper middle class, left liberal leaning, urban dwellers, libs, upscale libs, college educated upscale libs with money. A very important demographic in America. Your NPR listener, your tote bag wielder. And what the fuck did he do? He went after that base by aligning himself with Trump. He aligned himself with Trump. And so all those motherfucking people are pissed the fuck off. And they think buying a Tesla is basically the same as wearing a MAGA hat. So he successfully destroyed the economic argument. He's run out of runway with his promises, and he pissed off the base of people that were going to buy his car. And then on top of all of that, there's one more thing. This is the final nail in the coffin. He's being straight up outcompeted by Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers who make better cars cheaper with better performance. Losing the competition, alienated his base, failed on it, you know, ran out of runway with his hype promises, developed one of the worst vehicles ever, the fucking Cybertruck, and now is being straight up outcompeted. This guy, Tesla, is fucking done. There's no argument in favor of Tesla that makes sense to me. There's no argument for Tesla that actually makes sense to me. This company should be worth 90% less than it is in the stock market. It should be priced as a company that sells, you know, 500,000 to 1 million or whatever cars it is per year, which is declining. This company is dog shit. The only case for it is that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is going to rescue Elon because it'll look bad if allying them results in your ruination. That's the only argument for Tesla, is that they're going to do some sort of bailout. But what bailout to what? They're just going to give him hundreds of billions of dollars as a cash gift? Like, what's the fucking plan? You're just kind of betting on some sort of Republican Party put. The white Republicans will start to buy them. Why? They hate electric vehicles. They think they're gay. Republicans think electric vehicles are gay. This is what Republicans do in America. If somebody said that is crazy. This is what Republicans do in America.
Or maybe you've had it happen to you, a truck giving off a big black of cloud and smelly exhaust.
Makes you cringe in your car. Traffic expert Jason Luber joins us because a viewer wants to know if this is even legal.
Yeah, well, no, it's definitely not legal, and it's even worse if you're on a bike or you're just walking around.
Yeah.
And people call it rolling coal, and it's basically modifying a newer diesel engine to force more fuel into the engine than the engine can handle, and the result is that big, thick, black smoke. And Pete from Boulder writes, what's driving you crazy? I'm curious how it is legal for diesel pickup trucks to get tricked out to roll coal, given you need to be air care certified before getting license plates. Seems like a waste to me if they can't stop this type of emissions. Well, it's not legal, Pete, but there are many older diesel truck engines made under older air quality standards that can roll coal without modifications, and rolling coal became illegal in Colorado in 2017. However, the legislature only made the act of rolling coal itself illegal, not the act of altering your vehicle. One of the easiest ways to modify a truck is with an illegal defeat device that hooks right to that truck's computer. So with just a touch of a button, you can actually modify the fuel mixture to be able to roll coal and then go back to normal. The EPA says about 15% of diesel truck owners have illegally tampered with their emissions. The fine in Colorado for rolling coal is $100, but there are some vehicles that are excluded. I too have been the victim of rolling coal in the past, and on the online version of this story, I share much more, like some of the reasons truck owners told me they like to roll coal, as well as what Diesel Repair Shop in Westminster thinks about this issue. All of that right now on the denverchannel.com. You just click on the left side menu, get to Denver 7 traffic.
So if you don't know what rolling coal is, I'll just explain it to you really quick, which is you have a diesel truck, and you can when a diesel truck runs rich. If you know anything about internal combustion engines, I do, because of I'm a pilot. All right, and part of being a pilot is you have to study internal combustion engines, because if you don't study, because engine failure will kill you. So you need to be able to understand what causes engine. And when you're flying, this is another thing that happens. The higher you get into the air, the thinner the air is. So you have to change the mix, meaning the amount of fuel that goes into the engine, to ensure that the engine will run optimally. So as you ascend into the air, you have to alter the fuel air mixture to ensure that the engine runs well. Okay. So when you're a pilot, you have to learn about internal combustion engines, and you have to learn about the different conditions that could cause problems, right? Okay. That's the source of why I know about this. I'm not a car guy. I'm a plane autist. But all the things that happen with planes also apply to cars. All right. So what is happening when you're rolling coal is you're providing a rich mix, which means you're in the ratio between air and fuel has too much fuel. We call that a rich mixture. And what happens when you have a rich mixture is it causes incomplete combustion, which is inefficient. And when you have a perfectly combusted fuel, it results the byproducts of a perfect combustion are water and carbon dioxide. If your engine was perfectly efficient, that's what would come out of the tailpipe, just water and carbon dioxide. But problems with the efficiency of consumption, and then there's all sorts of other things, like, you know, there's a small amount of lubricant that gets in it, and there's all sorts of other factors that can affect exactly how the consumption, how efficient it is, you know, the shape of the cylinders, the compression ratio, all sorts of things that are happening, and the octane of the fuel. There's all sorts of things like that that could affect it, right? Diesel engines work through compression, all right? And so what they do is they just add a whole bunch of extra fuel, which fucks up the combustion. Now, the engine still runs, right? But it's spewing about a whole bunch of incomplete combustion. So it'll be like all sorts of carbon. It'll be carbon rich because there's more fuel, right? There will be more, there'll be diesel fuel itself, and all sorts of other carcinogenic and other harmful fucking chemicals that are a result of the incomplete combustion. When you have when you roll coal, it basically puts out more emissions than burning like an entire fucking tank of gas optimally in your car. Because modern cars are tuned to be as efficient as possible. So just by rolling coal, you do so much emissions, it's as if someone burned an entire tank of gas. It's that bad. Teenager allegedly hit 6 bicyclists with his truck heading through the hospital. A biker says the driver was harassing them. And this is when people will roll coal in America. They will, right-wing extreme fascists in America, they have these modified trucks. We call them small dick trucks. Basically, anybody who drives them has a small penis, unless you actually need them for work, like you actually are a construction worker, which is most of them are not. Most of the guys who have trucks are they're suburban shoppers. Okay, the most common place you'll find these trucks is a strip mall parking lot. All right. So that's, the Costco parking lot, that's absolutely the Target parking lot. You don't find these fucking things on a construction site because construction workers are not rich. They can't afford a $100,000 truck. So this is all fake. This is all, gender affirming care shit. This is the equivalent of, this is hair plugs or whatever. All right. So these guys that roll coal, they do it as a political statement. And they will oftentimes roll coal on people that have electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, people that are riding bikes, pedestrians, joggers, things like that. That is the, Subarus, things like that. Anybody that has any kind of left-wing political sticker or whatever, that's the target for this. That's what this is. This is just harassment and kind of saying like, oh, you care about the environment? Well, I just canceled out all the effort you did. You bought an electric vehicle, you bought a hybrid vehicle. Well, I just rolled coal for 5 seconds and I just canceled out all the emission savings that you did. That's literally what it is for. And so you think these guys are going to go from doing this to buying an EV? Elon Musk is cooked. All right, Donald Trump's a dumb fuck. I'm done with him. Let's go back to Kyle talking about him. Will Trump declare martial law on 420? Will Trump declare martial law on Hitler's birthday? Now, I think this is blue anon shit, which is basically just QAnon for Democrats and libs. But at the same time, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think it's as crazy as you might think. I wouldn't rule it out. Yeah, did you see Zoran was on CNN last night? Yeah, we're going to watch that. That was actually pretty based.
He may have learned either from his dad or his grandfather about this idea, which that guy deeply believed in, creating the tech native America. And now, of course, he's the shadow president and the co-president. And it looks like they're laying the groundwork to try to create the tech native America. Jesus Christ. All right, we're not done. Ready? Trump has effectively decapitated the military leadership, including replacing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, a 4-star general who is black, with a 3-star MAGA TV personality with the nickname Raisin Cane. Trump fired all the JAGs, the people responsible for ensuring that the military stayed within the law, and has Hegseth running around doing things like canceling the plane that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima because it's called the Enola Gay. As Mike Flynn pointed out on December 17, 2020, martial law is a tactic well within their consideration. The Insurrection Act was repeatedly invoked in the lead up to January 6th as a potential way to prevent the peaceful transfer of power. Trump's lawyers got in the way last time because they feared the incoming administration. This time, they will have no reason to fear at all. To get a sense of how far afield we are, here is federal judge Beryl Howell explaining the very basics of the Constitution, as if to a recalcitrant second grader to Donald Trump after he illegally fired the head of the National Labor Relations Board. And then it goes on to give that quote. I note that 3 months after January 20th, 2025, when the executive order to determine whether to invoke the Insurrection Act was signed, is 4/20/25, so April 20th, 2025. 420 is, as noted in an SEC filing, a part of marijuana culture and a favorite meme of Elon Musk. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of examples of this. However, 420 is also Hitler's birthday, and National Socialist symbolism, as I've extensively reported, is very important to Elon Musk, hence the multiple Zig Heils.
Okay, this is just weird this isn't really proof. This is just some guy ranting about how much Elon's a Nazi, which, I understand, I get it, but, that's not really anything.
As a sign of the potential actions of the Trump regime, given both its ferocity on one hand and its increasingly ineffectiveness on the other hand, here's the chief proponent of American National Socialism, aka the Dark Enlightenment, Curtis Yarvin, yesterday, practically begging for new and unprecedented abuses of the Richter scale, or the Trump regime will start to wither and eventually dissipate. And there you have his quote. If anyone thinks this regime would not consider invoking martial law on Hitler's birthday, you really got to reframe your thinking. The Nazis snuck in the back door and took over. We either squeeze them out or die regretting we didn't. Musk's Tesla stock is tanking. His rockets are exploding on a regular basis. He's deeply unpopular, but this will only make him more desperate. Head on a swivel, friends. In the meantime, enjoy the fireworks. And then he just shows Elon's rocket blowing up. So let's review. What are we talking about here? We are talking about Trump signing an executive order on day one, which says, hey, within 90 days, give me a report on whether or not to invoke the Insurrection Act at the southern border. So it would be deploying the military in the United States nominally over the southern border. Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth are doing the reports. They are total yes men. They are total sycophants. They will put in that report whatever they think Donald Trump wants to hear, or Trump might even just outright tell them, put in the report to invoke the Insurrection Act. Then you also have this article in the San Francisco Chronicle, another person saying, yeah, I think it's very likely he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act. 90 days from when he signed that executive order is 420, which also has the added symbolism of the things we just discussed, right? So, I don't know, man. I'm hoping it's not true.
Project Mars, A Technical Tale is the English translation of an unpublished German-language science fiction novel written by German-American rocket physicist Wernher von Braun in 1949. Von Braun's original title was Mars Project. What's your evidence that Elon was named after this guy? Is there any, like... Interest in this novel increased in 2021 when people connected the Martian leader called the Elon to SpaceX founder Elon Musk. However, Errol Musk, Elon's father, asserted in 2022 that he was fully aware of the Von Braun connection in naming his son. Well, that's some real Nazi shit.
Right? I'm hoping it's not true. But, you know, Crystal made this point to me. Have you ever known Donald Trump? Let's say they release the report and they say, yeah, we think you should invoke the Insurrection Act over the border, right? Have you ever known Donald Trump to be like, I know you want to give me extra power, but I'm going to go ahead and pass on that right now, dog. All he cares about is money, power, and control. All he cares about. And so it might happen. And then, of course, what'll end up happening if he invokes martial law on April 20th is that will be expanded out. So the Insurrection Act will be expanded out. It'll be nominally over the border, right? But then as time goes by, let's say you have huge protests in the streets fighting back against Trump, as we should. He'll just declare those protests illegal. He'll say, I already invoked the Insurrection Act. You guys know that we're at war at the border. You go out and protest. That's illegal activity. We're arresting you for protesting. I don't know if it's going to happen. I want to be clear. I don't know if it's going to happen. But there's enough evidence here to have the conversation. Do you think he's going to do it or not? I'll tell you this much. I'm worried about it. All right, guys. That's the show, y'all. Love y'all very much. Sorry to end on such a dour note, but everybody do me a big favor. Please subscribe to the channel. That helps out big time. Click that like button as well. That means a lot. 2, thank you to everybody who supports this show on Patreon. Literally could not do it without you. And remember, tune in to Crystal Kyle and Friends this week. We have Zoran's coming on. Everybody's favorite New York City mayoral candidate.
Oh, hell
All right,
yeah.
I love you guys. I'll see you there. Peace. Hey,
Hell
y'all.
yeah. Speaking of Zoran, let's go. He was on CNN, and what a fucking king. What a fucking king.
Is a clear flashpoint.
This is some great editing. Okay, you've linked this like 5 times. This better be fucking good.
I went to Japan and I got both of you guys gifts. This one's for you. This is a Palestinian movement in Japan.
Thank you.
Solidarity with Palestine. And this is a little train.
Oh.
For public transit. But,
all right, listen, great to see you. Okay, take care.
All right. I went to Japan and I...
That did not happen, chat. That's a lie. That's a lie.
Case in point, meet Zoran Mandami. He's the brash Democratic socialist who's internet famous for bringing the fight to the Trump immigration czar. Watch this.
How many more New Yorkers will you detain? How many more New Yorkers without charge? Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
But with that new notoriety, Mandami is now the target of vicious, vulgar attacks.
Go yourself, you terrorist. Matter of fact, you're gonna wash my European feet. You filthy sand. Hey, you Muslim piece of shit. I hope a illegal puts a bullet in your head. Get out of my country.
So a lot of this, Zoran, is coming from in the wake of a lot of these arrests that actually have had to do with pro-Palestinian activists and protesters, but also the broader immigration issue has really hit this city hard.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that when a New Yorker who's a permanent legal resident of this country was dragged, disappeared, and detained without charge. And those are the reasons that I asked those questions of Tom Homan, which is at the forefront of many New Yorkers' minds. Do you believe in the First Amendment? What are the charges that you're holding Mahmoud Khalil on? And how many more New Yorkers will you detain? And when I said those things, these are the messages that I received, and it's just a glimpse into what was flooding into my office the day after and the days after. But I'm not intimidated. I shared them to show what happens when a Trump administration that ran on cheaper prices, on lowering the cost of living, and on a message that resonated with New Yorkers on Fordham Road and Hillside Avenue, has instead shown itself completely unable and uninterested in delivering that, and instead is pivoting to the one thing it can do, which is deliver cruelty to its perceived enemies.
I mean, if Trump were doing as he said he would do and focus on the criminals, that would be one thing. But there is also a lot happening where criminals, people who are not criminals, are getting caught up in this, and people who have points of view, perhaps, that are opposed to by this administration are getting caught up too.
Well, I think obviously the vast majority of people that ICE has engaged with are criminals, have either criminal convictions, have orders of detention against them, or orders of deportation. As ICE goes into different communities across the country to engage these folks, they are coming across other individuals. Obviously, you know, there will be...
Zoran saying he's not intimidated makes him look good. Yeah, it's called being a good politician and standing up to your enemies. Like, if you're going to be a good politician, you need to stand up to your enemies and be like, fuck this piece of shit.
The instances, unfortunately, where there is either a misidentification or a mistake that is made. But the vast majority of people who have been detained are those who have committed criminal acts either here in the United States or committed crimes in their country of origin before they came here illegally.
Isn't that why due process is important in this conversation? And that's one of the things that the Trump administration is pushing back really hard on. This idea that they can just deport people using a wartime power that is disputed, and they don't have to, say, prove that they are actually in a Venezuelan gang. It could be a soccer player who's here on an asylum claim.
I mean, and this is at the core of what has outraged so many New Yorkers, is that we still don't know the charges for which they have detained Mahmoud Khalil. And what we've seen, in fact, is an inability to prove them because there are no charges. This is an attack on the First Amendment. It's an attack on one of the most core things about being an American, which is the right to engage in political speech without fear that your government is going to lock you up.
Well, I would strongly disagree here. First of all, Mahmoud Khalil came here on a student visa, did ultimately get a green card. But the fact is, you are not entitled to either a visa or a green card. And under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State does have broad power when somebody is engaged in conduct that is perceived to be a threat or has a negative impact on our foreign policy. That is what they are utilizing with respect to Mahmoud Khalil.
What is the conduct?
And the bottom line here is that these protests, by and large, and I went to Colombia at the height of those protests back in April of last year. I've been to Colombia multiple times. I listened to the chants that were being engaged with. And the bottom line is, in many of these instances, these students have been engaged in rhetoric and conduct that has threatened the safety and well-being of Jewish students on campus. They have been engaged in
The only thing that happened at Columbia was a bunch of IDF soldiers threw stink bombs on pro-Palestinian protesters, and the NYPD used maximal force to attack them. Give me a fucking break.
Conduct that promotes propaganda put forth by a terrorist organization.
Promotes propaganda put forth by a terrorist organization. AKA, you said something I don't like, therefore you're doing propaganda by a terrorist organization, right? Notice that they're not saying they said this, which is not correct because XYZ, right? Notice how they don't do that. Notice that whenever you're talking about these situations, whether it's Asmongold or Mike Lawler or any of these fucking cowards, they don't talk about what people said and why it's incorrect. They just call it propaganda and they're linked with terrorist organization. It's all rhetoric. It's all bullshit. They don't quote the guy and say, he said that you should kill Israelis. He did this. He attacked this person on this day. He violated this by doing this. They say, like, he was a part of a group that said this, or this group did this. Blah, blah, blah. There was never any actual quotes. There's no evidence that he did anything. They don't even try to debunk the arguments by, if the arguments are so bad, why aren't you bringing the arguments up? If what he did was so evil, why aren't you bringing him up?
Isn't that speech?
And that is...
But isn't that speech, Congressman?
But I'm sorry.
Isn't protest and
you are here? If you are here
rhetoric?
on a visa,
I know, but
if you are here
the
on a
question
visa,
is,
you are not.
He's not on a visa. He's a lawful permanent resident. That's not a visa, you dumb fuck. He's been given permanent status.
The question is, what you're describing sounds like speech to me. Is it speech in your view?
Well, you think at the height of these protests that there was not physical violence? You did not hear speech that was
Okay, if he did physical violence, then show the violence that he did. If he said threats, show the threats that he did. You know, prove the crime, you dumb fuck.
Threatening.
Hey, look, I think that maybe there was.
well-being.
I think that if there was physical violence, then absolutely that should be prosecuted.
And we would. So when you're calling for the eradication
100%
of Jews,
that should be prosecuted. But the question
this is where.
But hold on a second, Jamal. Just a second. The question is, have they brought up evidence of that? Has there been physical violence accused here?
No.
And the answer is no.
Well,
so I'm wondering.
The process will play itself out, but the Secretary
maybe the
of
argument
State
on
has
your
broad
part
authority
is
under
the
that
argument is
legislation.
Yeah, speech is a means to revoke someone's visa, and if that's the case, the administration should absolutely say so that can be litigated.
When you are engaged in propaganda on behalf of a terrorist organization, yes, that is a problem.
Not.
Sorry.
Brother Mahmoud Khalil is here legally. He is a student.
Nobody is arguing that.
Okay, so he's here legally, engaging in peaceful protests, and he was detained. We have no idea what the charges are. You don't arrest and then try to throw charges at the wall to figure out what sticks to try to get him deported. Thank God there was resistance and he was not deported. You mentioned the Secretary of State in the broad jurisdiction there, but you used the key word, perceived. If the Secretary of State has an agenda like this administration and they perceive someone to be a threat because they use language that they don't like or understand, they can lock them up and possibly deport them. Free speech is free speech. Brother Khalil did not engage in any crime, did not hurt anyone physically. Free speech is free speech, and it's under attack under this dictatorship. And if you question the agenda of this particular administration, Elon Musk used a Nazi sign at the inauguration. This is what we're dealing with this administration. There's an agenda to support and uphold white supremacy.
Just, again, the obsession with Elon Musk. Just to go back to what we talked about last segment. Taking this back to 40,000 feet, this is another 80-20 issue where I think Trump is winning because the sympathy out there for people who on October 8th, the day after October 7th, October 8th, they started in the streets here in New York. And what that amounted to was cheering on the people in Hamas who crossed over the border and murdered babies and women and children.
What babies? Like, that's the thing. Like, you have... I think there was one child that was accidentally killed as a bullet went through a safe house door. They said 40 beheaded babies. That was a lie. Meanwhile, they just killed 400 people, most of whom were women and children, by violating the ceasefire. What are you talking about, man?
In their beds. That's what happened. So spare me because I don't have an ounce of sympathy for anyone who was out there, part of those protests, cheering them on. Goodbye, good riddance. Maybe I'm wrong.
He wasn't cheering them on. You are wrong.
I think we're all talking about speech versus deporting someone or attempting to deport someone. And I think this will be held in the courts. And I think what you've seen from Donald Trump and the administration is that when it goes to the courts and they don't rule in their favor, they end up attacking the judge. And I think you'll continue to see this. I actually agree with you that I think that the administration believes that this is a big win for them. I think that having these fights in court, they love that. They love the battle to try and showing the images of people being arrested or deported or any of those things. I think they are truly enjoying that. They don't understand the impacts that it's having on our country and the long-term impacts and how people are angry about them. But I do think that this was their plan all along.
And Muslim does. Go ahead, Zoran.
Well, look, I think it's, as you said, it's critical for us to be fighting this dismantling of the First Amendment. And what is so galling is that it's not just a dismantling done by a Republican administration in D.C. It's one that's also being done with the support through the silence of a number of other candidates for mayor, namely disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who took 72 hours to say even a word. And when he issued that statement, we still didn't know whether he actually opposed the detainment or whether he was calling for the release of Mahmoud Khalil. And this city needs someone to lead it that is willing to fight the Trump administration, not collaborate with it in the manner of Eric Adams or that which Andrew Cuomo is running.
I think what the general public sees is a Democratic Party that is more interested in defending people like Mahmoud Khalil than they are victims of crime here in New York City.
You want to defend the First Amendment? Well, how about somebody out there has been a victim of a crime? Have you thought about that? Not so interested in having free speech anymore, are you?
They are Jewish students who have been subjected to vile anti-Semitism across these college campuses and universities.
Vile anti-Semitism from the people who call... I mean, like, this is the thing that's insane. This is the thing that's insane. This is identity politics. They use this identity politics shit. That's the thing that's incredible about liberalism, and is that Republicans are liberals. They just wish they were able to say that you're being racist against me for being white. Like, that's it. That's what they want to be able to do. They want to be able to go out there and go, you're being racist against me for being white, and that's so unfair. That's what they want. They are identity politics liberals. It's like when people are like, you disagreed with me on something, you racist. It's the same shit. Liberalism.
Or than they did seeing Democrats refuse to stand for a 13-year-old boy who's
What's the point of debating people like Lawler? They refuse to listen and are only there to push their warped narrative. The answer is because Snowbun. That's a good question. The answer is going on CNN and standing up to these right-wingers and being a prominent candidate for New York City mayor. The big problem we have on the left right now. Is that so many people think we can't do anything. This has been the main goal of people like Barack Obama for over 20 years, which is convince left-leaning people to accept less and we can't do anything and we need to be on the back foot. That has been the project of neoliberals and the Democratic Party for decades. Your ideas are pie in the sky. We can't do anything. What else are you supposed to do? You need to just cooperate with the Republicans. The American people are center-right. That has been the entire, because they're center-right, the right-wingers in the Democratic Party, and they want center-right policies, and they want to support the rich. The main thing they do to left-leaning people who support the Democrats is convince them that we can't do anything and that we're losing. And you just have to accept eating another shit sandwich because that's better than being shot in the head. That is their fucking entire project. So when people like Zoran go on CNN and they stand up to this guy and then the polls pop up and he's got the most fundraising money and he's doing well in the polls and he's a competitor, people start to think, well, maybe we could do something actually. Because the number one problem we have is people don't believe that change can happen. That is the result. That is the crisis that we on the left face. People don't believe us when we say we could do things. And that's part of the reason why Trumpism is granting us freedom. This is the thing that I told you would happen before the election when people were like, Mike, aren't you worried that Trump's going to win and he's going to do horrible shit? And I said, I think Trump's going to win because people on the left don't have a vision. We need to if we want to beat Trump, you need to have a vision. Yes, I am worried about Trump winning. No, I don't want Trump to win. But if you want Kamala Harris to win, you have to push her to be better. You can't just say I'm going to vote blue no matter who because Trump is so bad. You have to convince Kamala Harris to be worth fighting for because that's the only way the left ever wins in America. Whenever you tell people they have to eat their medicine, they have to eat their vegetables, that's when Republicans win. When they have something they can believe in, even if it's bullshit, that's when the left wins. And Kamala Harris didn't give anybody anything to believe in. And that's what I told you was going to happen. That's why I was convinced she was going to lose. And she did because of that. And I tried my best to make her better by telling her, hey, if you don't have these positions, I will not support you. And I tried to raise my voice and give voice to the voiceless millions of people who agreed with me and then didn't vote for her. They either didn't showed up, they voted third party, and some 10% of them voted for fucking Trump. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to say, hey, we're a big block of people out here. You need to run on something. You need to change your positions. You need to separate yourself from Joe Biden. And they wouldn't do it. And that's the crisis we're in today. The crisis we're in today is the Democratic Party of no, we can't. That's too, you're going too fast. No, we can't. The very, very first thing we need to do is convince regular left-leaning people that yes, we can actually do things. And that's why Barack Obama won, because his message was, yes, we can. Now it was all, yes, we can was bullshit. He was a fraud. And that's the other crisis we're in. We had our moment. for a 21st century FDR, and he punted the football because he was a right winger. And we may never get that chance again. I don't know. I can't see the Democrats ever getting to 60 votes because people hate them. But the very first thing we have to do is convince people that we can. And that's what Donald Trump is convincing a lot of people. It turns out the president's really powerful if he just decides, fuck it. If the president just decides he wants to stop funding something, he can stop funding it, apparently. If he wants to say he can ignore judicial orders, it turns out that he can. The parliamentarian stopped me is not working anymore.
Cancer, who was made a Secret Service agent. That's what the juxtaposition is right now. That's what the American people are seeing. And they're looking at it and they're going, these people are out of their minds.
Go ahead.
Well, you know what I think also the New Yorkers are seeing is a Jewish student by the name of Grant Minor, who was the president of the United Auto Workers local on Columbia's campus that was just fired by Columbia administration for participating in those same protests. These are students that deserve their rights to be respected. These are ones that deserve to be recognized by those of us who aspire to be leaders across the city.
I got to leave it there, but I just want to point out, I mean, no one is supporting the harassment of Jewish students.
Yes, they are.
No.
Respectfully, yes, they are.
What else are you cheering for when you're marching the street?
Hang on a second.
I have gone to these
Let me
protests.
be clear. I'm talking about here at this table.
Of course not.
Okay?
That's how
They charged
no one
us
at this
and they
table
protected Jewish
supports
students.
that.
Yeah, except
or
they failed
violence
to move
or anything
forward
like
on
that,
numerous instances
Congressman,
of anti-Semitism
but I
that we
do
saw
think,
all across the
Congressman,
country. And Chuck Schumer refused.
They brought a lot of
Congressman
moving
and
forward with the
Sochi.
Anti-Semitism Awareness Act.
Just give me a
Refused
second
8
here.
months.
The other thing that I want to point out here is that if the Trump administration is making speech, public or private, a means for deportation, they should make that case in court. That is all. That is the only question.
Again, the
I think that is
Secretary has
added.
broad power under the Immigration and Nationality Act. That is what they are utilizing.
I think that's fine. I think that's fine if that is the theory.
That is what they are utilizing.
They got to bring it to court, and the courts will decide whether that is appropriate in this country. State Representative Zohran Mamdani, as you can tell, he's running for mayor of New York City. Thank you very much.
And here you go, chat. CIA Slotkin. What have Bernie Sanders AOC actually done? That's no, we can't. No, we can't. I have a fun little counter to this, which I occasionally post from time to time. It's been a minute. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. It's been a minute since I posted this. While we wait, watch this. Anyway, I found it. Bernie Sanders co-wrote one of the only major pieces of legislation that Obama signed in his entire second term. Keep coping, you neoliberal losers. Anytime, and I want to show you this. I even made the clip of the signing ceremony, chat, because I even provided the signing ceremony because people go like, "What did Bernie Sanders ever do?" The answer is he got Republicans and Democrats to come together to support expanding veterans benefits, and got it through the House and the Senate and got it onto Obama's desk. One of the few pieces of legislation Obama even signed in his second term of any note. That was Bernie fucking Sanders. And again, major reform of the VA, vastly increased the satisfaction and performance of the VA. He did that while being in the minority. What has at least Slotkin ever done? Renamed a post office? Voted with the Republicans against her own party?
remember how to sing these things? Just barely. You know, I don't get enough practice.
I'm sorry you didn't see that, but Bernie Sanders made fun of Obama there. I'm gonna turn up the volume just so you can hear Bernie Sanders giving Obama the old ribbing.
You remember how to sing these things? Just barely. You know, I don't get enough practice. I want more. I want more. I told folks after we signed the workforce training bill, I said, this feels good, doesn't it? You know, we should do it more often.
Now, if you're wondering what's happening, Barack Obama is doing the traditional executive bill signing where the executive will line up, you know, usually around 10 pens, and he'll sign each letter of his name with a different pen so that he could give a pen and say, this pen was used to sign this bill into law. And he gifts that to the people that are the most responsible for the creation of the law. So you keep one of the actual pens, you know, and you could say like, I did this. I made this law. He's not using a Sharpie. He's using an actual fountain pen.
But you guys, everybody on the committee really did good work on this. So I want to thank everybody for their leadership. Really appreciate it. Because it's a good piece of legislation and it'll help. All right? Thank you. Let's squeeze in there, everybody. This was good work. Thank you.
And if you want to know more about the bill, somebody, it was the Sanders-McCain strike VA deal. Senator Bernie Sanders and John McCain have struck a deal on legislation to reform the Department of Veteran Affairs to expand veterans' access to health care and make it easier to fire VA officials for misconduct. The compromise measure announced Thursday on the Senate floor includes pieces of 3 VA bills that have been introduced to the Senate. Similar legislation overwhelmingly passed the House last month and has included the Sanders-McCain deal with the addition of an appellate process. The bill also includes the construction of 26 new VA facilities in 18 states and uses $500 million in unobligated VA funds to hire additional VA doctors and nurses. The agreement struck between Sanders, an independent from Vermont who chairs the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and McCain, a Republican from Arizona, could salvage VA reform in the Senate. The two senators began negotiations after it looked as though VA reform might become another victim of the chamber's gridlock with the competing Democratic and Republican bills, which have been an embarrassing failure for both parties amid the national attention focused on the VA's troubles. I would have written a very, very different bill, Sanders said. Right now, we have a crisis on our hands. It's imperative that we deal with this crisis. So, like, this is literally just a lie. It's a lie. What has he done? He fixed the biggest issue of Obama's second term, which was VA fucking disasters of care from all of the veterans who were suffering from, you know, the wars they did overseas. Bernie Sanders delivered for those people by working with even Republicans he got. And that is the pathetic nature of somebody like Elise Slotkin. I can't do what she does because we live in a purple state and I'm a pragmatist. Even a pragmatist, aka votes for Republican bills. And this is what I want you to know about CIA Slotkin, is that is the Democratic Party of the future. If you stick with the Democratic Party, you are empowering this fucking loser.
He's handed the keys to Elon Musk and is selling this country for parts to the richest people on the planet for a kickback. And in exchange, they will bankroll his campaigns and those of his allies. They scratch his back, he scratches theirs, and the rest of us are left behind.
So today we are here to say very loudly and clearly, no, we will not accept an oligarchic form of society where a handful of billionaires run the government. No, we will not accept an authoritarian form of society with a president who undermines the Constitution every day and is working aggressively to take away our freedom of speech and freedom of assembly.
Furious voters voicing their outrage at lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans. Some Republicans facing heat over supporting the cuts from DOGE. Meanwhile, lots of Democrats being told they're not doing enough to push back against the Trump administration. CNN's Eva McKen is in North.
I love AOC, but she shat on Marxists? No, she didn't. People are misinterpreting that because they're stupid. They're misinterpreting what she said. She said, Republicans say I believe this because it's in the Communist Manifesto. No, I believe it because I'm a waitress. That's not saying I hate Marxists. That's just her making fun of the Republicans. That's not her hate. Like, you're just misinterpreting that. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, what do you expect her to do? To go up there and be like, Stalin and Lenin were right. America, KKK, is the evil empire, and we need to destroy America, Like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's saying that this is a self-evidently class-based. She's not coming from it from some sort of intellectual thing. She's coming from it because she experienced the real world. You're hearing what you want to hear. Yes, exactly. And like, I don't expect people to go up there and go like, as a Marxist, I believe this. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Las Vegas, Nevada, where Senator Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just wrapped up a big event. Eva, what happened?
Jake, what struck me about this Fight the Oligarchy tour is there is a very deliberate effort to be nonpartisan. You heard Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say several times, no matter if you disagree with me on a whole host of issues, if you are willing to fight for working class voters, then you belong here. And that really flies in the face of how the left is often characterized as dogmatic and not pragmatic. But that is not what we are seeing here. Senator Sanders says that he understands that both parties are captured by big moneyed interests, and this is a real effort, regardless of ideology, to call back the working class and bring them into coalition.
This isn't just about Republicans. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too. We, as a community, must choose and vote for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class.
And so, Jake, you heard the Congresswoman there. She didn't spare her own party, even though she didn't mention Senator Schumer by name. This is just one stop over the next several days that they will make. And I'll end with this. There is clearly an appetite for this message. It's unclear if they are peeling off some of the conservative voters that may have voted for Trump. That is certainly the goal here. But the Democratic establishment cannot afford to ignore this energy center of the party. There may be some that try to dismiss this, but they have a lot of enthusiasm here on the ground.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wages that Democrats would do a lot better with voters if they looked less like diplomats searching for a compromise and looked more like prize fighters for the working class.
This isn't just about Republicans. We need a Democratic Party that fights harder for us too.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with this entire strategy. It has no purpose. And like, I appreciate what I get what they're kind of doing, which is like, they want to be seen as the people that are the voice of the grassroots, which is about like a kind of medium term strategy, right? I get that. But I think the problem that I have with this is it's not really reckoning with the reality of what the Democratic Party is, which is you guys are not leaders in the Democratic Party. AOC and Bernie Sanders are not leaders in the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are. And they are kissing Netanyahu's feet as Netanyahu says, thank God Biden lost. Like, the Democratic Party that they want is not the Democratic Party that exists. It just doesn't exist. And you guys have won elections. Like, Bernie Sanders won because he ran against the Democratic Party. You won because you primaried a member of the Democratic Party establishment, and people were enamored by your story. And you have represented this kind of millennial leftism. But you are not a leader in the Democratic Party. We made you famous. The Democratic Party hates your guts. They wouldn't even give you a meaningless job as the ranking member of the Oversight Committee. They embarrassed you and threw their weight behind a fucking elderly guy with cancer who sucks. Like, you're not a leader in the Democratic Party. I think this is kind of part of the problem, is like, people are not talking to AOC and Bernie Sanders honestly. You guys aren't on the team. They hate your ass. And they'll never, ever, ever, ever allow the Democratic Party to fall in your hands without significantly sabotaging it. Let's say that AOC won the Democratic primary. Do you know what would happen? The right-wing Democrats would put fucking bombs on the bridges of the Democratic Party and detonate them on their way out. They would steal the treasury. of the Democratic Party. They would endorse an independent. They would do everything they could to defeat her and keep her out of office. So my question is, okay, you know that's the case. You know that the Democratic Party is going to pour hundreds of millions of dollars of Republican super PAC money in the Democratic Party primary. I get that it's hard. Let's get back to this in a second. I want to get back to this second. Let's watch Hassan Abi talking with Bernie Sanders at AOC. It didn't last very long, which is another problem, right? And this is kind of the crisis that we're in. This is the crisis that we're in, which is, it's not that I don't like Bernie and AOC. In general, I do. I think the way they reacted to the pro-Palestinian movement was slow-footed and out of touch. And I think that they're operating in ways that to me sound irrational. And I want to know who their advisors are. I would love to have a conversation off the record with some of their advisors to get to and with them to really understand where their head's at, because it doesn't make any sense. It's irrational. Going halfway on Israel isn't good enough for the Israeli lobby. The Israeli lobby wants you to pull a John Fetterman. If you're not John Fetterman, the Israeli lobby is going to primary you for somebody who is John Fetterman. So why are you giving them anything? The only way you're going to defeat the Israeli lobby is to defeat Israel itself. They have declared war on reasonableness. They only want fealty. You can't be someone who generally likes Israel and supports Israel, but wants them to follow international law and to give the Palestinians a state. That is not a permissible opinion anymore. Liberal Zionism is dead. They killed it. And they declared they want a fascist ethno-state doing genocide and ethnic cleansing. And you're either with them or you're with the terrorists. That's their position. I didn't make Israel do that. I didn't make Israel kill 200,000 men, women, and children in indiscriminate bombing. I didn't make them say they were going to collectively punish the Palestinians. I didn't make them violate international law. It was not my fault they did that evil shit. They're doing it, and they're declaring war on me for objecting to it. And so, like, you try to do this thing where it's like, well, I don't want to give offensive weapons to Israel. All weapons are offensive weapons because the Iron Dome lets Israel attack with no consequences. If you fund the Iron Dome, if you fund Israel's air defense network, then they can bomb and attack other countries and not worry about a counterattack. If you provide aircraft carriers and fighter jet protection and you install the THAAD system in Israel that protects them from missiles from outside, if you're fighting their enemies in Yemen, then you are helping Israel do the genocide. There is no distinction. And by the way, they're not grateful. They're not like, cool it on anti-AOC attacks. She gave us the Iron Dome money. Or she voted present on the Iron Dome. Cool it with AOC attacks. Quite the contrary. They have said, oh, you don't want us to kill every child in Gaza? Well, we're going to spend $25 million in your primary. Good luck. Good luck winning. Do you know what $25 million does in a congressional primary? That means every single person in your district who votes has 35 mailers in their mailbox about how you're a fucking Nazi. Every single time they turn on a TV or watch a fucking video stream, there's an ad against you with whatever scandal you have or one that they make up. You ever done anything embarrassing? You ever made a mistake in your life? You ever told a lie? That's going to be broadcast to everybody ad nauseum forever. Do you know what $25 million does? It's humiliation. It is slander. It is bad faith on every single thing they can buy advertising on. You think you're going to beat that by being an honest, good person? This is the delusion.
Always rules an envy.
I mean, they're in Las Vegas, and Bernie Sanders aligned DSA people took over the Nevada Democratic Party. And you know what they did? They stole all the money. Democratic Socialists swept out of power in Nevada. Nevada Democratic Party Chair Judith Whitmer faced heavy criticism from a number of key figures in the state party and lost support from some of her former allies. Nevada Democrats ousted a slate of Democratic Socialists who took over the state party 2 years ago, ending a troubled reign marked by divisions and infighting. You think it was from them? Monroe Marino, who's the first black woman elected to lead the Nevada Democrats, was backed by a slew of elected officials, as well as the so-called Reid Machine, the powerful organization first brought together by late U.S. Senator Harry Reid. She was the victim of a smear campaign that she had worked to turn out voters in down ballot races in rural counties. And like, that's, you know what they did? They stole all the money from the Democratic Party when she won. You think you're going to be able to win and they're going to be like, well, I guess we're going to keep supporting you. No, the moment you go in there and say, hey, we need to do this, this, and this, they're going to blow up. They're going to dynamite the Democratic Party. So what the fuck are you talking about? Why don't we just build our own shit from scratch? It's not like it's going to take that long to catch up. The Democrats are hated. And we could set the rules of this institution to not permit this kind of behavior in it. We could have the mic.
But what that means is that we, as a community, must choose and vote for Democrats and elected officials who know how to stand for the working class. I want you to look at every level of office around and support brawlers who fight, because those are the ones who can actually win against Republicans. Let's be real about that.
Brawlers. I assume you approve this message.
100%, absolutely. Democrats are in a crisis right now. They're on life support. They have a testicular fortitude problem. They are not fighting nearly as hard as they need to fight for the American people, as was seen last week during this CR vote in the Senate. It's a problem. And for me, it's not about the parties, because the parties are going to kind of do their thing. It's about the people rising up and holding the parties accountable. Democrats have fighters. Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, the whole squad, Greg Casar, Pramila Jayapal, and governors and mayors across the country are fighters. But we need some of the OGs in the party to elevate, uplift the younger people,
or do they
and
need
take a
to,
step
do
back.
they need to step aside?
Or step aside, because we need to hear new, fresh, bold voices. That's what the American people want. And if the party doesn't do that, the party is about to be finished.
I hope.
Okay, Aragon, if you want to get advertising in my stream, just pay me money. If you want to get it out of my stream, just pay me money, 10K. Just give me a check for 10K, and then you can advertise. I'll give you 10 minutes for that.
That AOC, Pramila Jayapal, Greg Casar, I hope they're the new face of the Democratic Party, because Republicans will be winning elections all over the country if that is the face of the Democratic Party. Are you?
I mean, y'all
listen, a district like mine that Joe Biden won by 10 points, okay, 10 points. Kamala Harris won by half a point. Okay, I won by 6.5 points, 24,000 votes in a district that has 85,000 more Democrats than Republicans. Why?
And you're right.
Because but you ran against a cornball candidate.
He was your friend.
He was not my friend.
He was your friend.
You had someone running against you who was not a strong candidate. And we still have,
we agree on.
We still have consultants and big money controlling the Democratic Party, compromising it.
Outperform Kamala Harris in her
Come on
district.
now.
Trump did,
Sure.
Trump did better than
But here's my point. The New York, look no further than New York, where issues like cashless bail have been a disaster, issues like sanctuary state status, congestion pricing. In districts like mine, where Democrats on paper should win big, they're losing. And so if the messenger is AOC, who, by the way, was originally from my district, she grew up in Yorktown, not the Bronx. If AOC is the face of the Democratic Party in swing districts all across this country, she will mobilize voters way more than Nancy Pelosi ever did.
Let me just add the counterpoint within the Democratic.
Yeah, guys, there's a bunch of people who are waiting on the sidelines who don't vote Republican, but if they saw AOC, they'd be coming out of the woodwork. See, by the way, chat, do you know why Lawler is saying that? If he actually thought that, he wouldn't say that. If he actually thought Bernie Sanders and AOC were easy to beat, he wouldn't say it. He would be like, man, you know, Bernie Sanders, AOC, they have a lot of challenging ideas. They're kind of scary, because he would want to do the Pied Piper strategy. He doesn't want to help the Democrats. Yeah, Mike Lawler. Yeah, he wants the Democrats to have more. He's really scared of Joe Biden. He's scared of Joe Biden, guys. If you only do more neoliberals, he'll be so frightened.
Democratic Party to what AOC is saying from this is
and
Alicia
Mondaire Jones is AIPAC machine. And Mondaire Jones came out and ran for that AIPAC money. And guess what happened, chat? They put a pie in his face and said, "You're not pro AIPAC enough. You're not pro Israel enough." And Lawler went out there and said, "Genocide now, genocide forever." And they were like, "That's our guy." So it doesn't matter how far right you go on Israel, they'll want more far right. $590,000 from the pro-Israel lobby.
Slotkin, she gave the Democratic response to the State of the Union address much more of a moderate voice in the party. Listen.
I can't just chain myself to the White House and become an activist full time because you and others here are going to call me for things that you need. All of those things require me to be more than just an AOC. I can't do what she does because we live in a purple state and I'm a pragmatist. I got to save things for my people.
See
Things are getting messy.
Come on,
there.
son.
It's getting very messy.
That's
and
white flag energy right there.
Names are
that's
being
white
put on the
flag
table.
energy right.
All right, let's back that up one more time. I gotta watch that again.
I can't just chain myself to the White House and become an activist full time because you and others here are going to call me for things that you need. All of those things require me to be more than just an AOC. I can't do what she does because we live in a purple state and I'm a pragmatist. I got to save things for my people.
See
Things are getting messy.
Come on,
there.
son.
It's getting very messy.
That's
and
white flag energy right there.
Names are
that's
being
white
put on the
flag
table.
energy right there.
No, I think she's right.
I think she's right. Lawler's like, "Oh my God, at least Slotkin is so right."
She's right. First of all, even choosing her to give the response to Governor Trump.
That's your party's choice.
Governor Trump. I should call him Governor Trump.
That's
President Trump was a problem.
You should be the chairman, by the way.
I mean,
the
this
advice
is
you gave
crazy.
a minute
Let me
ago.
let Joe finish.
Go ahead, brother.
You know, she is right in the sense that it's easy to throw grenades. You can be AOC and throw grenades all day in a safe district and not have to account for anything. There's a huge delta between the hype of AOC and the accomplishments of AOC. And frankly, if you look at that tour she was just on with Bernie Sanders, right? It was called the Fighting Oligarchy Tour, right?
Yo,
they essentially traveled the country and spoke to an echo chamber of people who already agree with them. How is she and Bernie Sanders, with their message, going to attract people in swing districts by the Fighting Oligarchy Tour?
Maybe what they're looking at is actually.
I'm scared of AOC.
I welcome her to
There
my
are Democrats I'm scared of. There are Democrats
Maybe
I'm
what
scared
they're
of, not her.
looking at, Joe, is what the Republicans did, which is all of the guys who stood around screaming in Congress and not passing any legislation. Those folks are in power now. They won at the end of the day.
I think that this is where I will actually agree with you. I do think that there is a difference between Bernie Sanders and AOC going and talking to our base, and a difference between the senator who was just elected, has to show results for her state, has to, in a swing state, a battleground state.
By the way, chat, this is who DNC. This is the perfect example of what liberals are like, right? Perfect example of what liberals are like. Worthless, meaningless, air filling. There's never been a single person who has watched someone like this talk and been like, "I want to volunteer for the Democrats now." There's never been a single person who's like, "I'm taking out my checkbook. I am getting fired up." This is the equivalent of listening to a corporate HR person.
State, and she has to deliver something, versus AOC and Bernie are just, they're talking about the base. I will say, I was at the DNC in 2017 after almost this exact same situation. Bernie Sanders asked Chuck Schumer, "Let me go out and talk to our base." This is exactly what he did in 2016. It's 2017. This is deja vu. You know what happened when Nancy Pelosi? Everybody was asking for her to resign. You know what she did? She embraced the new generation of the Democratic Party, lifted them up, and said, "You know what? I'm going to step aside after the midterm elections, and I'm going to lift everybody else up."
And that's why she worked to block AOC from becoming a ranking member of a committee.
That also happened.
The tens of millions of people who are staying home, they're staying home because we're not elevating new voices in the Democratic Party.
No, you're not. Your
Those
chairs
people
are
mobilized.
Maxine
I
Waters
think
on
to
financial
Congressman
services.
Lawler's point, this is not just a Chuck Schumer thing. I think it's happening pretty broadly among some of the older contingent in the Democratic Party.
Joe Biden is also responsible for the detainment of Mahmoud. Of course he is. Of course he is. All right, let's watch the Hasanabi talking with them real quick. But before we do that, chat, I just realized something. We are 3 hours into the stream and I haven't hit my sub goal. You sons of bitches. Here I am day in and day out, streaming with ads off, taking the slings and arrows from the likes of Ethan Klein, Destiny, weird stalker orbiter freaks, Asmongold. Hutch owes me $1,500 that he didn't pay, and you motherfuckers are not even paying for your subscriptions? Okay, finally, thank God. Joyful Owl, thank you for the fantastic Matt with a tier 3. Exactly, 50 months at tier 3. The least you could do is say thank you. Morcon Mordon, thank you. If you enjoy this type of content, if you appreciate having content creators, political commentators, and spaces where we could actually talk about politics from a reasonable leftist perspective, Hammond Fist, thank you for the 20 bomb. Stop giving a shit, thank you for the 20 bomb. Hassan's interview was bullshit and disappointed to see him not ask two collaborators of genocide a single hard-winning question. I'm now a mic stand. Okay, first of all, you need to get your head on straight. All right, you need to get your head on straight if you're going to be a Mike fan. Bernie Sanders and AOC are not the problem. In fact, they are attacked. Bernie Sanders was attacked by Democratic Majority for Israel. Their very first ad was against Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders and AOC had power, we wouldn't be having a genocide in Gaza. Anybody telling you different is lying to you. All right? They're lying to you. They want to create in your mind some feeling of powerlessness and depression. If a person is saying to you that Hassan or Bernie or AOC are the problem with our politics right now, even when I strongly disagree with them, that person is a fucking op, or they're stupid. The only exception, and why do I say that? If you think that, you know, the most pro-Palestinian members of our government are the problem, I want to see which sabotage operations you've done. I want to see the actual shit you're doing in the real world. I want to see some real shit. Like, which military industrial complex site have you hit? Because there's no fucking way you're real. Sitting on your ass tweeting doesn't make you lefter than thou. Showing up and standing in a room with 10 other people that agree with you is not doing anything. You need to recalibrate yourself to reality. Y'all do anything to defend Hassan? You'll not be asking a single question. I see who voted for more settlements in Gaza. Bernie the other day pushed away Code Pink for asking about my mood. Like, be for real. That's absolutely not the case. They have time and time again come out and spoken out on those people. AOC organized a letter for Mahmoud. She was the first congresswoman to talk about it. Like, it's just like, come on, man. You're just making shit up. I have my criticisms of AOC. Endorsing Kamala Harris and saying she was working tirelessly on a ceasefire was a fucking joke. But I could at least respect the people that wanted to stop Trump. I could at least respect. I didn't take that position because I felt like Kamala Harris was a genocidal maniac, and that if we actually wanted to beat Trumpism, then you had to stop her and you had to stand up to her and withdraw your vote so she would change positions. But I could at least respect the people who were worried about the risk of Donald Trump, because I don't know if you noticed, they were right about that. Donald Trump is worse than Joe Biden. So I can at least respect that calculation. It was wrong. The only way to defeat Trump was to actually stand up against Joe Biden and be against the genocide. But that water is under the bridge. They were wrong. I was right. But I at least understand why people made that calculation. It at least has some rationality behind it. I don't agree with people saying we should trash the public faces of leftism for what? What's your plan? There is no plan. What's your alternative? You have no alternative. Bernie voted yes, a pro-genocide Senate Resolution 72. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. I'm a D1 viewer of Mike. The chatter just flat out lying. It is what it is. This is exactly what liberals said. LMAO. That's no, he did. That's no, it's not. The Senate Resolution thing was some sort of like unanimous consent thing. Who fucking knows? Okay, so this guy is a brand new account who's just posted anti-Bernie shit, and that's it. That's it? I think you might be a fake puppet account. I don't like people coming in here with fake accounts. Come in with your real account. Ed alert. All right, let's get going.
We have Bernie Sanders and AOC in the building. You guys are about to go up and speak at another one of the rallies that you've been doing, the Fighting Oligarchy tour. And I'm very excited to have you here. Vegas, specifically for me, has a lot of importance because I always say it's like the last time that I felt really hopeful about the future of this country, because I was outdoor knocking for you along with the Chapo boys as well in the primaries. And
we did pretty well, huh?
Yeah, and everyone kept saying, oh, the culinary union is not going to vote, but the rank and file very clearly was swinging in your direction, and in spite of the media attacks, you obviously pulled through, and then COVID, and then all hell broke loose, obviously, and here we are. You don't have a lot of time, so, and I'm sure that we'll get to talk a little bit more in the future as well, but I went to Japan recently, and I got both of you guys gifts. I actually have another gift for you, but unfortunately I don't have your gift, the actual gift here. Hold on. This one's for you. This is a Palestinian movement in Japan.
Thank you.
Solidarity with Palestine. And this is a little train for public transit. I have a Japanese Communist Party pin for you as well, but unfortunately, because I went over there and I checked out their headquarters. But what are you guys trying to accomplish with these rallies? Let's get started.
I mean, I think that the kind of moment that we're in, and also something that Trump was able to exploit, was really practicing, even though he doesn't believe in working class politics, they had a very focused working class strategy.
By the way, thank you, chat, for the hype train and helping us hit our goal. And oh, by the way, chat, guys, I wanted to say this right now. Did you guys know that VO's debut is today? VO is going to be on the front page of Twitch, and they have developed a whole new VTuber personality, and they are debuting it today. Let me see if I can show you. They're finally moving beyond the sussy. And they have developed themselves a nice VTuber personality. So that's going to be today. If you're at all interested in VTubing, thank you, Solio, you should definitely check it out. If you don't know who VO is one of the people who was unfairly roped in and banned by the banning of the MENA panel. VO and Denims were two people that were invited to a panel set up by Frogan for Middle East content creators, and VO was on there in an egg costume and was banned for 30 days. Even though she had absolutely nothing to do with any kind of behavior, didn't set up anything, didn't really participate in it. VO is really cool. So she's just developed herself a nice Uba VTuber and thigh. I mean, we'll look at this. VO did nothing wrong. So there you have it, chat. The VO model reveal. You'd love to see it. So go check that out. It'll be on later today.
And I think for a while, like, Democratic Party clearly...
I think the little monster is called Egbert or something like that. Edgar, maybe. Something like that.
Wasn't effective at that, wasn't successful at that. And I think one of the things that we're here to do is to actually rally a class-conscious movement to bring people together and to show that we can fight for a better future, not in marginalizing and attacking people, marginalized people, but actually in rejecting the differences that we have to come together in common cause and to organize folks.
Well, I agree. To me, this country faces the worst set of crises that we have faced in a very, very, very long time. We are looking at a nation which is now oligarchic. And they don't hide it. I mean, I must give them credit for that. They're out there. Mr. Musk, the richest guy in the world, is running all over the place, cutting the needs of veterans, cutting after Social Security. There are, in addition to Musk, he got 13 nominees of Trump to head major agencies who are all billionaires. So you got a government, clearly, no embarrassment, of the billionaire class, by the billionaire class, for the billionaire class. And then what is, I would hope, would be upsetting to all Americans, no matter what their politics may be. You can be conservative about this. You got a president who is moving us very rapidly into an authoritarian form of society. I mean, you don't sue media in America because they say something bad.
But he does. He is. Now what? He's arresting people for their speech. He's suing them because of their takes. Now what? I get you some subs and it gave one to Will Neff. I think he owes you some now. Hell yeah, brother.
About you. Alexandria and I got about 500 lawsuits there, but we happen to believe in democracy. You don't ask for the impeachment of judges because they issue a ruling which you...
Would you agree that we need the Democratic voter far more than we need AOC or Bernie, but in order to get those voters, we need AOC and Bernie? Here's the reality. I am way to the left of Bernie and AOC. They're basically barely on my horizon. But where I am and what you think of me doesn't matter. All right? What matters is, who do people trust? I wish they trusted me. I wish I was the fucking most popular leftist in America. You know, I wish it was me that was in charge. But guess what? It isn't. So, and I'm sure you feel the same way about yourself, right? You wish you were the king, but you're not. Okay, so you deal with that reality. I'm not in charge. That's fine. Bernie Sanders, and to a lesser extent AOC, have the trust of a lot of people that are way, way, way to the right wing in ways that I never will. A lot of regular, everyday people know Bernie Sanders. They trust Bernie Sanders. They like Bernie Sanders. So when he talks about this shit in this moment of disillusionment, people want to flock to these people. Now, there's a population of people that recognize that AOC and Bernie Sanders have embarrassed themselves, have, you know, compromised themselves, have made decisions that hurt people, that have made compromises and that didn't work, that supported people that shouldn't be supported. They fucked up. I was calling them out for fucking up every step of the way. Like when I was saying Joe Biden should drop out and they were saying he shouldn't, they were wrong. I was right. I wish they had primaried his ass. I wish Bernie Sanders had primaried his ass in 2024. I wish Bernie Sanders had said, you are a bad president. You're in the pockets of the fucking billionaire class. You're a puppet of AIPAC. And I'm ready. I'm going to primary your fucking ass. I wish Bernie Sanders had done that. Maybe he wouldn't have won, but I wish he had done that. Mike, it's not a matter of trust for you. You know things, and dumb idiots who don't know anything find people who know things to be grating and bothersome. Hassan gets away with knowing things because he hides behind bro styling. I mean, my problem is I don't care about lying to you just to make friends. Like I'm not going to like pump people up that are frauds because I want to be friends with people. And when people see that I'm willing to speak freely and speak my mind, they think it's some sort of like tactic because that's how they think. The number one strategy that to know how people, that if somebody is kind of like sussy, is they're like, oh, Mike is actually an X, Y, and Z instead of what I say that I am openly. Do you think that I could put up some sort of act for years? And the reason why they do that is they don't want to deal with my arguments because my arguments are not easy for them to refute. I think that Bernie and AOC were scared about being blamed for Trump winning again. If they were too antagonistic to the Democratic Party, they should have just realized they'll be blamed regardless. And they were blamed. They were blamed. And they are blamed. And they are disrespected. And they are backstabbed. Sarah McBride and other devs have discussed how the party must accept devs with differing stances on trans rights to not alienate people. Sarah McBride is just a careerist, you know? I don't know what else to say.
Disagree with. So it is, these are tough times. And what we have got to do is rally the working families of this country to stand up to oligarchy and to demand that we have an economy and a government that works for all, not just the people on top.
So one way that this government, I think, the Trump administration has been able to very expertly tackle these issues is by using an entry point of pre-established marginalization. Obviously, the erosion of civil liberties is happening all around, but like in terms of attacking free speech, a fundamental principle that I think all Americans agree on. And the way that he's done this, the way that this administration has attacked free speech is by doing something that previously has only been utilized in the darkest times of American history. I'm of course talking about Mahmoud Khalil being potentially being deported, or at least having his green card revoked for basically nothing. That the administration has all but admitted for no discernible reason other than the fact that he was the lead negotiator on the student side, the student protesters at Columbia campus. On top of that, just like in Nazi Germany, the Trump administration is now trying to put up an academic receivership and take charge and take control over different institutions within Colombia, and I feel like this is a grave mistake. Do you feel like the Democrats have any sort of interest in fighting back against this? Not even, regardless of what their opinion might be on Israel, the fact is that this is greatly going to expand, and it's simply just the entry point. Like, the Palestine conversation is simply an entry point that has at least like some semblance of institutional backing. But it's obvious to me that they're going to go after a lot of other people, including but not limited to the French researcher, according to Le Monde, that was denied entry into the country because they looked through his phone and they found out that he had criticized Trump's elimination of grants.
I think there actually is
critique of Hassan. He spends too much time contextualizing the conversation before allowing his subjects to respond. I think a couple things here. Hassan is used to longer form interviews and he's not as used to short form ones, and he wants to give them, you know, I think part of it is he wants to challenge them and give facts so that they have to make a more fulsome answer, which is good because that's a different style than most of the time. He's not a typical interviewer that wants to ask these very open-ended questions. He wants to challenge them and push them with important context for the viewer. I think that's totally fine.
Support for it because because of the free speech grounds on it, because of the free speech grounds, because when ICE came to try to pick up in Mahmoud Khalil's case, when they tried to pick him up, they offered no warrant. These were unmarked people. There were no charges. And so you have Senator Durbin and Senate Judiciary, right, Bernie? I think he
is the ranking member of the Judiciary.
I believe they released a statement talking about how they want to move on this. But I also think that it goes without saying that there is still profound money and interest that remains dedicated on both sides.
Has Ethan lost his shit on Bernie and AOC talking, Hassan talking to Bernie and AOC? Yes. Yes, he did. What he did is he found some sort of ultra leftist who is like, don't talk to Bernie and AOC, they're genocide supporters. And that's what he promoted. Somebody give me a link to that. Also, you can see why the CIA loves ultras. Why the security state loves anarchists. Because they're dumb.
Of the aisle in trying to marginalize and also conflate criticism of Israel as anti-Semitism, right. And we have to be very aware of that too.
We have very
that account. It was disappointing to see the Fed posting. There's plenty of accounts that I like, but who fall for liberal identity politics bullshit or engage in this kind of like holier than thou. You know, I'm an anonymous account online, and I'm going to post about how I'm the true ultra. And it's like, if I don't see your face and name, I don't want to hear how you're more left than me. If I don't have your face and name, I don't want to hear how you're more left than me, because you're not a real person. You don't have to live with the consequences of what you say. Bernie just literally voted for genocide on Palestinians. We're just supposed to be cool with Hassan the Hun normalizing him in leftist spaces. No, fuck that. Hassan is often a positive influence, but this is a fucking penalty. Fuck Bernie, fuck AOC, and fuck you for platforming them. Guys, how dare you platform Bernie and AOC? They're just using words. Limited
time, and you guys have to.
Do I need to? Sorry.
You got no time.
I'm going.
Okay.
It's my cue.
All right.
Just
sorry,
a minute.
The thing about Hassan is, like, I wish he needs to be like, this is my personal opinion with Hassan. He needs to be a little bit more pushy. Like, I'm gonna have 50,000 people watching. I need to have this amount of time locked in. Like, and it's going to be 10 times, 20 times more than the people you have in the rally. The rally is important because of the visuals of so many people in the same room, but I have more people watching than you're ever going to get it to show up for a rally. So we need to have this space respected. Like, he should do that. You know, I think Hassan's problem is he still thinks of himself as like just a Twitch streamer guy. He doesn't really think about the true clout that he does have. And it's not because he's trying to be arrogant. It's more like he's helping them be smarter.
All right, perfect. One question I actually wanted to ask you before we let you go is, you've also talked about, recently with the New York Times about what the future of the Democratic Party looks like and what maybe young enterprising individuals must do. And I believe you I'm paraphrasing here. You said something along the lines of like running as an independent rather than utilizing the party.
For me, that's not a very radical concept because I am the longest serving independent in American congressional history, and I've always run as an independent. Look, I think the Democrats over the years deserve credit for the work they've done on women's rights, on gay rights, on civil rights in general, fighting bigotry.
Destiny didn't get any consequences, Mike. All that effort for nothing. What do you mean? He's never going to get unbanned from Twitch, and he's being sued, and he's being investigated for crimes. What do you mean? No accountability. And almost all of his close collaborators distance themselves, except for the most weirdo freaks. What are you talking about? I think maybe you should like let the. Why don't you wait until the statute of limitations on the crimes runs out before you spike the football?
Deserve credit, and they've made progress. But I don't think anybody with a straight face can tell you that they've stood up for the working class of this country. And I think that's why...
Destiny didn't get any consequences, Mike. All that effort, drama already for getting illegal. I think he's trying to say that people are forgetting that Destiny is a fucking sex criminal. I mean, when you have the LFSF's mods purged twice to, sweep for the guy, I mean, what can you say? Anytime he pops up, people are like, isn't this guy a rapist? Or isn't this guy a sex criminal? I don't know if he ever raped anyone, but I'm just describing the comments that are being made.
So many working class people have drifted into the Republican Party, not because they believe in tax breaks for billionaires or they don't believe that climate change is real. It's they look at the Democrats and there's not much there. So what my view is people should think about running as they want. Progressive independents should run as progressive Democrats. But don't necessarily feel that you have to run within the Democratic Party. And I think as you may recall, in Nebraska, a fellow named Dan Osborne ran a really, really powerful campaign as an independent, running as a very proud trade unionist, running on economic issues, and he did extremely well, much better than anyone had anticipated. So that was my point, and I think it makes sense.
Do you feel like there's any sort of momentum to break through the duopoly in this structure as someone who has run as an independent and
it is,
a long career?
It's a long discussion. If you're asking me, do I think we could start a third party tomorrow? I don't, for a lot of reasons.
Why not? I mean, like, do I think we could start a third party tomorrow? Like, yeah, of course it's not going to happen overnight in the sense that we're going to just start a third party and instantly win. Let's say this. If you could know at 3 election time that we could start a left-wing party and they would win a landslide in 3 elections, but you'd have to lose 2 more elections on the way. So on the 3rd election, we win in a landslide, but we lose 2 more elections. So 1 more midterm and 1 more presidential year are both lost. But you know for a certainty that 3 elections from now, we win a landslide and we get to enact all the policies we want. Our magical Christmas land comes true. Would that be worth doing? And so, like, that is the kind of, like, question, which is, okay, the Democratic Party right now is at an all-time low in popularity. The leadership of the Democratic Party is weak. Who are they? If you started a third party and you directly challenged for the voice of the center left in this country, who are they going to throw up to stop you? Who is going to be the party? Who is going to be the representative of the Democrats? We have no donors. Yes, you do. It's the Bernie Sanders donors. And by the way, money matters less than ever before. And more money will arise, the more likely it is that you're going to win. Like, this is happening all over the world. Whether it's Mélenchon, whether it's Morena in Mexico. There are left-wing parties that have popped up and competed. And I wish that wasn't the right move. I wish the Democratic Party was more democratic, but it's not. It's a party captured by the donor class and the consultant class. They just don't care what you and I think.
With restrictions in various states making it almost impossible. But I think what you're seeing is massive discontent with both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. More and more people are looking for, I think, independent alternatives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Well, all right. Listen, great to see you.
We'll hopefully do this again very soon.
Okay. Take care.
All right. We'll go over the.
I think the main thing that I would say is I don't think Bernie and AOC really even entertain the idea, and I haven't seen any. Okay. Here's what I think we should do. We've got to change the conversation. How do we change the conversation? The only thing that we're lacking right now is actual honest to God data. I wonder what the data would be. I wonder if somebody did a poll where we called up the American people and we said to them, would you be interested in a new political party led by Bernie Sanders and people who agree with Bernie Sanders? That's what I would. That's the only thing I want to know. Would you support a new political party led by Bernie Sanders? And I want to see what the results would be. So you could versus a Democratic party led by Joe Biden, a party led by Bernie Sanders, and a party led by Donald Trump. And I want to see what the numbers would be. Let's see what the numbers would be. Joe Biden's Democratic Party or Chuck Schumer's Democratic Party, whatever you want to say, whoever you want to do Chuck Schumer as the leader, he's the leader. Chuck Schumer versus Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, and see where it is. I don't know where it would come out. I don't know how it would shake out, but I'm curious. I could see all sorts of results, right? I could see Donald Trump at 40%, Bernie at 35%, and the Democrats at 20-something%. I could see that. I could also see Bernie Sanders at 50. There's a whole range of shit that I could see. I don't know what the answer would be. I think discounting the idea of a third party out of hand because it's hard is, I've lived through major third parties. I was here when the Reform Party was started. Does anybody think that Ross Perot is better thought of than Bernie Sanders? Does anyone think that Ross Perot is going to be was a better? I mean, like, that motherfucker was up in the polls at one point, like literally number one. He ended up getting 19% of the popular vote. If Ross Perot wasn't a fucking doofus who dropped out and then tried to jump back in, he probably would have been might have even pulled off an electoral plurality. I don't think it's as hard as Bernie Sanders says it is. I mean, yes, it's harder to run as a third party than as an independent, as an independent, or run. Although I don't even know if that's true in every state. I'm with you, but the premise is Bernie is at his age and willing to do all this shit for years. He's not. As far as I know, he's running for another Senate term, right? He just got to, he's going to be in this for at least another 4 years, probably longer. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't give a shit how old he is. I legitimately don't care. Donald Trump is 80 fucking years old too. Who gives a fuck? Joe Biden is old as fuck. Who gives a shit? If people are willing to vote for these 80-year-old fucking cretins, I don't give a shit. I'd love it to be someone younger, but they need to emerge and actually take the leadership. You can't just pass leadership because of some arbitrary age number. I would love to have someone younger, but no one's risen to the occasion yet. Nobody has caught on as much as Bernie has caught on.
To the rally now. We got to get your mic off.
Thanks so much.
Perfect.
Okay, we good?
All right. Chatters, that was Bernie Sanders and AOC. There was obviously a lot more discussion that I wanted to get to, but unfortunately, they literally are going up right now. So it was short.
I don't know about the Green Party because I just don't trust the Green Party. Here's my problem with the Green Party. If you just jump into the Green Party, then you are basically jumping into a situation of people who you don't know what kind of scandals are behind the scenes. You don't know what kind of way they have cooked the books or stolen money or done shady shit. It's a party that's been there for decades doing God knows what, and you're gonna jump into it without any clarity of what's gone on. You don't know. It's the same thing with PSL. It's like I'm not saying these parties are bad, but you just literally don't know, and they don't really bring much. So it's like you're attaching your name to something that people have a lot of opinions about that has risks, and it's like, but for what? Anytime you join an organization, you're attaching your name to that organization, and you should ask yourself whether that's worth it. And if you're Bernie fucking Sanders, I don't see what benefit you get from being a Green Party member that you can't outperform instantly on your own. You know what I'm saying? That's why. Getting on the ballot, Bernie Sanders could get on the ballot, right? He could get himself the signatures he needed to get on the ballot. He doesn't need the Green Party's help. Before today, you had heard of the term oligarchy. Yes, I could confidently explain what it means to someone else. Yes, but I'm not sure exactly what it means. No, I have not heard of it. The results of that question are basically the same as if people picked their answer at random. Yikes. Without looking it up, if you had to guess, which of the following best describes what you believe an oligarchy is? A government where power is concentrated in the hands of small, wealthy elite. 54% of Democrats agree. 68% of independents agree. 48% of Republicans agree. A system where all citizens participate equally in government decisions. 10%. A form of government where religious leaders control the state. 6%. And a political system where a single ruler has unchecked authority, 18%. So don't know, 12%. So 55% of people could answer this question. In case you want to know, the answer is A, the first one. The term oligarchy refers to a system where political and economic power is concentrated in the hands of a small wealthy elite, often at the expense of the broader population's influence in government decisions. With this in mind, which of the following do you think best describes the United States right now? Completely an oligarchy, 15%. Mostly an oligarchy, 19%. Somewhat an oligarchy, 26%. Not really an oligarchy, 12%. And not at all an oligarchy, 18%. Don't know, 10%. So if you add up the top three, people at least agree that it's at least somewhat of an oligarchy when they're given the definition. And an overwhelming majority of Democrats. The people who don't agree are Republicans. Republicans think we're not at all an oligarchy. Which of the following do you think best describes the United States as headed? Moving toward oligarchy, 48%. Moving toward a more democratic system, 25%. Staying as it is today, 17%. Don't know, 10%. So here's kind of my general feeling about polls like this. Why the fuck are you asking me? This is, I don't give a shit. Honestly, I don't care. I already knew this. I already knew that people don't know anything. Congratulations, they don't know how to answer a test. You've figured out that Americans can't answer questions correctly. Wow, amazing. What a surprise. I love how AOC treats Hassan like a friend because he is her friend. Bernie acts like grandpa on the block and treats Hassan like a neighborhood kid that comes over to shovel the walks and play cribbage. That's also how Bernie sees him. Hassan giving Bernie a tiny trade and saying 4 public transit will fuel me for the rest of the month. Yeah, that's pretty great. Not gonna lie, that was awesome. The gifts for the Communist Party were pretty great. Overall, my feeling is this. If you want to say the third party is a totally dead end, then you need to show me the evidence that it's a dead end. My strategic belief is that if Bernie Sanders said he wanted to run a third party, that it would be instantly competitive with the major national parties, and that if it was fully committed to, would represent an existential threat to the Democratic Party. And whether it, at the very least, would force the Democratic Party to move significantly to the left. So even if it didn't succeed, it would put so much external pressure on the Democratic Party that it would force them to basically capitulate to the left wing of their party. Because 80% of Democrats agree with left-wing policies. So the Democratic Party minus 80% of its base is fucked. And then once the 20% who don't agree with left-wing policies see that the Democratic Party is basically dead, they'll either switch to Republican or they will, you know, be angry but be forced into the Democratic Party. Who gives a fuck? There is no FDR without the Socialist Parties getting 5+%. Exactly. Exactly. Without the left pushing the New York Democrats to the left, then there is no FDR. Like, that's exactly my point. And I don't necessarily, if the Democratic Party ends up absorbing the third party after moving significantly to the left, that's a win. I just don't think the inside game works because the Democratic Party is so rigged. It's not like the Republican Party. The Republican Party is Democratic. Ironically, the Republican Party is more Democratic than the Democratic Party, in the sense that if a bunch of people vote for Donald Trump, he wins. If a bunch of the, you know, if the right-wing base wants to go to the right, they go to the right. With the Democrats, they don't give a shit what you believe or want. They have an outcome, neoliberal centrism. And that's what you're going to get, no matter what the base wants. That's the crisis that we're in. What do you think Ezra Klein is doing with the abundance agenda? The abundance agenda is the same shit, repackaged for the 8th time. All right, we need to watch another video.
From U.S. President Donald Trump, the Republican president signed an EO intended to...
This is the Philippines. Somebody sent me the Philippines news network about the Department of Education. Amazing.
My name is Kate.
Seeing these pictures and the developments taking place is obviously of a serious, profound concern.
All right, back,
it is a blatant violation of the ceasefire agreement, and therefore we continue to exert all of the necessary efforts that we are engaging with the relative parties in order to provide the consolidation of the ceasefire and ensure that we contain this escalation. This is going to be a serious development and one that will trigger ripple effects, which we hope would not continue.
The Israeli defense minister warning that unless hostages are released, what follows from Israel, and I quote him here, will be much harsher. That doesn't sound like an Israel prepared to return to the negotiating table, sir, does it?
It doesn't, and I think it's an isolationist policy and runs diametrically opposed to what the global community would like to see. The international community wants to see a cessation of hostilities, wants to see an end to the war. The entire international community has seen 16 months of horror and bloodshed and Palestinians being killed. And therefore, this policy is an isolationist one, and it's an obstructionist one to the collective will of the international community, which wants to see an end to this war.
You have said that you believe the international community wants to see an end to this war. What are you hearing from the Americans on your efforts to restart ceasefire negotiations? Are they still interested?
Well, we've been engaged positively and constructively with the U.S. administration. Our foreign minister had met very recently with Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Special Envoy on the Middle East, and we had good discussions, not only on the necessity of continuing talks and ensuring the consolidation of the ceasefire agreement, but also on the reconstruction plan which Egypt had put forward for the rehabilitation and reconstruction of Gaza, and the discussion.
How do you think the left is going to push the devs to the left by not running as Democrats anymore and challenging the Democratic Party existentially? The American people want a third party. Unaffiliated voters are bigger than ever. The dissatisfaction with the status quo is international. I don't think running another primary, first of all, to run as a primary, you have to wait. You have to wait until the fucking primary elections next year. You are sitting here waiting on your ass.
What is this? I think Mike is right on this, and Bernie's making a huge error. The problem with Bernie Sanders' idea of just running as an independent, that it requires every candidate to educate the entire electorate about who they are and what they believe. A new progressive party could just use brand recognition that Bernie has built and earn support. Yeah, it doesn't seem like Bernie's on board with that for the material, the structural, the material hurdles that you would need to overcome for a party like that. I don't disagree with Mike on what a third party, especially one that is like backed by a popular candidate that is an identifiable brand, would look like.
That's what separates. When I don't want a third party. I want to say this very clear to everybody so that you understand what I mean. I don't want a third party. I want a new biggest party. I want a new second party. I don't want a third party. I want a new biggest party. That's not the third party. That's the first party. And people call it a third party and they're assuming defeat right off the bat. When you call it a third party, you're assuming defeat. I don't assume defeat. I want a new party to replace the Democratic Party. And in our history, I'm going to just go through some history real quick and you'll understand what I mean. Let's just go some basic Wikipedia presidential. We'll start with presidential election of 1996. Not so long ago. Presidential election of 1996. There were three major candidates: Bill Clinton, Bob Dole, and Ross Perot. Ross Perot got 8% of the vote, 8.4% of the vote. Bill Clinton, incumbent Democrat, 49.2%. Bill Clinton never won a majority. Now, 8 million votes for Ross Perot, 8.4%. Now, Bob Dole was considered to be one of the weakest presidential candidates in history for the Republican Party. But those Republican voters, they went and, for the most part, most of the, Ross Perot voters were probably something like 70-30 supported Bob Dole over Bill Clinton, right? This right here is a third party. The Reform Party was the party name. The problem with the Reform Party, it was a bunch of idiosyncratic cranks. It was a combination of like, the constitutionalist hyper conservatives. There's weird libertarians. There were kind of like audit the Fed kooks, gold bugs, just a lot of like weird kooky kind of crank politics. But the fundamental core of it is a populist rebellion against the neoliberal consensus on globalization. And that was shown even more in 1992 when Ross Perot got 18.9% of the vote as an independent, right? As an independent candidate, Ross Perot got 18.9% of the vote. And in certain polls and during certain parts of the election, he was actually winning, okay? Bill Clinton ended up winning the election with 43% of the vote, one of the narrowest wins in the popular vote ever. Ross Perot got almost 20 million votes. George H.W. Bush only got 37.4%, which I think is like the fewest percentage of an incumbent president in a very long time. And the thing about this was Ross Perot's main argument was that NAFTA and free trade were going to create what he called a giant sucking sound.
You can move your factory south of the border, pay $1 an hour for labor, hire a young 25, that's assuming you've been in business for a long time, you've got a mature workforce. Pay $1 an hour for your labor, have no health care, that's the most expensive single element in making a car, have no environmental controls, no pollution controls, and no retirement, and you don't care about anything but making money, there will be a giant sucking sound going south. So if the people send me to Washington, the first thing I'll do is study that 2,000-page agreement and make sure it's a two-way street.
And he was completely right. There was a giant sucking sound. It did cost millions of high-quality, unionized manufacturing jobs were outsourced, but not just to Mexico, but also to China. And he was completely and totally correct about what NAFTA would do. Ross Perot was right. Look at Bush and Clinton smirking at him because he wasn't part of the club. Rest in peace, Mr. Perot. Godspeed. You can see Slick Willie smiling and making plans to create a giant sucking sound in the Oval Office. Monica, Monica, Monica. Ross Perot was a great American who was a prophet. Ross Perot, we should have listened to what he warned us. The social costs for all these jobs lost, what people don't understand. Thousands of communities have been torn apart and lives shattered forever. All these young men who are ODing and committing suicide would have been working in these factories and starting families had this trade deal not put into place. It's a damn shame. This is true. This is reality. People work for slave wages in Mexico and let companies take advantage of that to save paying Americans. My family worked for GM for decades before they started outsourcing everything, and automakers make all kinds of money. So I want to prove to you that, like, the idea like, oh no, it's totally impossible to have a third-party candidate actually compete for the presidency is wrong. Ross Perot very well might have won had he been a better candidate and been less of a weirdo and not dropped out in the middle of the election for some reason. And look where he did the best. Pennsylvania. Of course he did. Of course he did. Let's look at some of the interesting polling. Early on, Ross Perot was winning. In June, Ross Perot 34%. Bill Clinton 24%. George H.W. Bush 32%. Like, Ross Perot literally was leading some of the polls, tied in May. But then he did this weird thing where he dropped out. He dropped out. See, he dropped out after the DNC. Perot withdraws, Democratic National Convention ends. He dropped out in the middle of the DNC. What the fuck? This is why he ended up only getting 19%. Because he dropped out, and then the Republicans and the Democrats had their convention, and then he re-entered the race October 1st. And he went from 7% all the way back to 20. But he was winning prior to the conventions, and then he was a dumb fuck. Like, what the fuck? So the idea that, like, third party is just impossible, there's no way it could ever work, and it's like, I don't necessarily think he would win instantly, but the idea that people are just, it's destined to have 1% support is just not true, especially in the conditions we're in now. And let's go even further back. Let's keep looking. Okay. 84, 88, they just had two parties. Then you had John P. Anderson, got 6.6% of the vote. This guy was another kind of weirdo. I think he was kind of like, I think Ronald Reagan is too right wing. He's like the Joe Manchin of 1980. I think is the best way to describe it. He was like, Ronald Reagan is too radical. I believe in, I'm a Rockefeller Republican. I don't trust those kooks. Not the Constitution Party. The Constitution Party is even more right wing. He's actually not that weird, but he's basically the, like, why can't we all just be moderates? All right. Let's see here. McGovern versus Nixon. Okay. 68. Another big third party campaign. George Wallace. George Wallace with his running May bombs away LeMay. Curtis LeMay was the commander of the Army Air Forces Europe, and he was in charge of the Strategic Bombing Initiative. LeMay was the guy who believed that we should target civilian cities and bomb them to break the will of enemy militaries. Curtis LeMay was a strong advocate in favor of using nuclear weapons. He was also known as Bombs Away LeMay. Very anti-communist psychopath. If America, like, he's basically America, one of America's most notorious war criminals. One of the most evil American generals to ever live. Curtis LeMay. That's a pretty high bar. He was running with George Wallace. George Wallace was a pro-segregationist candidate. You probably heard of him before if you studied history. He was very famous for saying, if I can find this.
Today, I have stood where once Jefferson Davis stood and took an oath to my people. It is very appropriate that from this cradle of the Confederacy, this very heart of the great Anglo-Saxon Southland, that today we sound the drum for freedom, as have our generation of forebears before us done, time and again down through history. Let us rise to the call of freedom-loving blood that is in us, and send our answer to the tyranny that clanks its chains upon the South, in the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth.
What the fuck?
I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
So George Wallace was the hyper-racist candidate, right? And this speech actually motivated a very recent speech.
And then you had to deal with the first intifada, and Israel prevailed. And Israel had to deal with the second intifada, and Israel prevailed. And then missiles were flying in December of 2008, and Israel prevailed. And then missiles were flying in November of 2012, and Israel prevailed. And so I'm confident that when it's all said and done, we're going to stand together. Israel today, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever. God bless you.
That's the leader of the Democratic Party that Bernie Sanders at AOC says that you can take over. Motivated and inspired by famous arch-racist George Wallace's Segregation Now speech, he gave a very similar speech in support of Israel, which is not at all surprising because George Wallace and Israel are very similar in that they are supporters of racial apartheid. So anyway, getting back to so another third party. This third party was very bad. Not a fan of this party. But nonetheless, they won 5 states. The states that they won were Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and they won 1 electoral vote from North Carolina. So how many elections have we talked about president where there's been a serious third-party candidate? I mean, we're just going back to 68. We've had like 4 or 5 already. At this point, it's just like, and there's going to be more. You keep going back. 64. You had LBJ, who was famous for his what he called the war on poverty. He won the I think this was the largest popular vote win ever. He created Medicare and Medicaid, 61.1% of the vote. Old Jumbo. He ended up being unpopular at 68 because, of the Vietnam War and his obsessive anti-communism. Of course, we have 60. We all know about that election. 56. 48. Again, another third-party election. Strom Thurmond. This is a close friend of Joe Biden. He ran in the States' Rights Democratic Party, which was kind of the beginning of the Dixiecrat Rebellion because Truman famously desegregated the military. And so the white racist friends of Joe Biden, Strom Thurmond, he actually ran for president. And I think there was a scandal recently where a Republican said it would have been better for the country if Strom Thurmond had won. The country would have been better if Strom Thurmond had won. Who said that? Oh, it was Trent Lott. Trent Lott apologizes for implying country would have been better with a segregationist president. Senate Republican leader Trent Lott has apologized for implying the country would have been better off had Strom Thurmond won the presidency when he ran in 1948 on a segregationist ticket. Last week, Lott recalled how his home state of Mississippi had voted for Thurmond when he ran on an anti-civil rights platform. We're proud of it, Lott said at Thurmond's 100th birthday party, adding, if the rest of the country had followed our lead, we would have all these problems all over these years. While Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle came to Lott's defense, civil rights leader Jesse Jackson and former President Al Gore called for Lott to step down. Senate Democratic leader Tom Daschle came to his defense. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I apologize to anybody who was offended by my statement. However, Lott has long had close ties with the Council of Conservative Citizens, which formed to succeed the segregationist white citizen councils of the 60s. In 1992, Lott told members of the council, "The people of this room stand for the right principles and the right philosophy. Let's take it in the right direction, and our children will be the beneficiaries." Just giving you guys a nice little... Isn't this fun to look back at history and see how close the Democrats are with the most evil people you've ever seen in the history of the planet? 44, of course, you know, Roosevelt. Roosevelt was rapidly declining in the 44 election, and there was a coup to install Truman to replace Henry Wallace, who was the most left-wing vice president we ever had. The most left-wing elected official, nationwide elected official, would be Henry Wallace, who was, of course, couped out of the vice presidency because it was very clear that FDR wasn't going to make it very much longer. All right. 32, of course, is the Roosevelt landslide. They had a bigger landslide at 36. The back-to-back landslides for Roosevelt. Al Smith, who was kind of like the conservative Democrat, also from New York, ran against Hoover and got mega landslided, lost his home state. Fucking loser. We still have what's called the Al Smith dinner, which is a tradition that's kind of dying out because of Trump. And then, of course, 24, we had the Progressive Party as a third party. Got 16.6% of the vote. Democratic Party really only held together in the solid South. Now, 1916 is very interesting because basically in 2012, we had a major party split, or not 2012, 1912, where President Taft of the Republican Party, former President Theodore Roosevelt, who had served 2 terms, decided to run again. And he started his own party, the Progressive Party, the Bull Moose Party. And William Howard Taft refused to stand down and ran as a Republican. So there was the Republican Party, the Socialist Party, led by Eugene Debs, who got 6% of the vote. You had Theodore Roosevelt and the Progressive Party, which ran and got 27% of the vote, won a bunch of states. The Republican Party only won 2 states, ultimately handing the presidency to Democrat Woodrow Wilson. What I'm trying to say is, like, the Republican Party was almost destroyed. Like, the idea that, oh, we only ever have 2 parties is not true. Because if you go back and you look at presidential elections since the turn of the 20th century, movements that were represented by credible third parties gained tremendous influence and continued to attack. And sometimes they outright replaced, but most of the time, the third parties represented strong factions. And they forced the parties to either fully defeat that faction or to move in that faction's direction, which is exactly what you saw with a lot of the progressive parties. And the segregationists were defeated and ultimately discredited, right? And there's no segregationist parties anymore. But the fundamental lesson that you learn when you look at American history is not that, oh, third parties are impossible. The reality is that if you keep going back, why do we have the Democrat and the Republican Party? Why do we have the Democrat and Republican Party? Why isn't it different parties than that? And the answer to that question is quite simply because we used to have other parties. We had Populist Party. I didn't even talk about the 1892 election with the Populist Party. Like, again, it keeps going. Like, it hasn't always been just the Republican, you have to do the 2 parties. There's been credible threats. I mean, 1872 is a really funny election. Grant versus the liberal Republicans. This is really interesting because in the 1868 election, Texas was still a military occupation zone, as was Mississippi and Virginia. So they weren't even allowed. They were just occupied territories. But if you just keep going back, like, you know, Abraham Lincoln, right? Abraham Lincoln wins in 60. The Democratic Party finishes 4th in the Electoral College. Like, the idea of like, you know, and the Republican Party didn't really exist in 1852. In 1852, there was no Republican Party. It was the Democratic Party versus the Whigs. 1856 is the first time the Republicans mounted a national challenge. The Whig Party didn't die, by the way. They had to be killed. They ran a candidate. Like, this is the reality of American history. So, you know, there hasn't been all that many presidential elections. You can click through them pretty fast. So just throwing out the idea of, you know, hey, the Democratic Party is just the party. It's not true. It's not. People don't have loyalty to that fucking thing. We could absolutely build something new, and we could build it very quickly. There's nothing in the Democratic Party right now that matters. They spend all the money every year. They pretty much spend all the money, and they raise more money. It's not like there's a whole big, it's not like there's a $1 trillion, you know, goblin horde or, dragon horde that we could grab a hold of, and that would then power us in the future. All they have are donor lists. All they have is a ballot entry and a brand. This is not something that we need to care all that much about. If you actually build a movement that millions of people want to get behind, you will get on the ballot, you will compete. And that is my argument. Now, if Bernie Sanders doesn't want to do it, if major political figures don't want to do it, then it's not going to happen. I can't do it by myself. Even though all the arguments I'm making are irrefutable, which is, if you don't have buy-in from nationally recognized leaders, then it's not going to work. That's the thing that always, whenever you have a successful third party, and I define success of a third party when it is a existential challenge to one of the major parties. That's what I consider a third party. Sometimes the third party wins, like the Republicans defeated the Whigs, right? Sometimes the third party just knocks the party that it splits on their ass and forces ideological changes to reabsorb them. That happened a lot with the Progressive Party. The Progressive Party under Theodore Roosevelt caused major changes in both the Democrats and the Republican Party. And, you know, the segregationist parties, they forced a reaction and they changed the Republican Party. Ironically, the Republican Party went from the party of black people to the party of the Southern strategy and Nixonian Reagan racism. It was just, it transitioned. The Democratic Party became the party of civil rights. Those third party movements did affect the major parties and change them fundamentally. And that is what we need. I can't tell you that the third party is going to necessarily destroy the Democratic Party. That's my preferred outcome. But it's just, the Democratic Party has been gamed. It's under the control of a lot of corporate cash. And, you know, look what happened to Jamal Bowman. $25 million of Republican money was injected into a Democratic primary, and the Democratic Party liked it because they were on the side of Israel. And they were like, yes, punish those anti-Israel Congress people. Intimidate the Democratic Party representatives. Sure, the vast majority of Democratic voters don't agree with what's going on in Israel, but spend $25 million of Republican donor money and Israel donor money to discipline the Democratic Party to the right. That's what they like about the Democratic Party. All right, everybody. Well, I wanted to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I really do appreciate all of you. And I want to send you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to Vio. Now, Vio's stream, it is Vio's debut day. Vio is one of the people who we are going to show support for because
oh, for fuck's sake,
they are doing their debut stream of their new VTube. Now, Vio, if you don't know who Vio was, Vio is one of the people that was on the MENA panel that was called anti-Semitic because they're Persian. And along with Denims, they were invited to a panel set up by Frogan, and then people called them anti-Semitic for rating hummus. People on whether or not they could use Habibi, which means my beloved in Arabic. And it was all brought out because Casey Tron said when she first heard Habibi, she thought it might be a slur and she wasn't allowed to use it. And so they riffed off of that joke. And now you have all sorts of freaks like, you know, Ethan Klein that got all these Arab and Middle Eastern creators banned. So we want to show 100% support for those creators. And so Vio is going to be on front page. They're debuting their new like VTuber avatar. They're getting rid of the sussy because they didn't own it. So I want to urge all of you to help out our friends and our comrades and on their projects. Were I on that board, Mike? Yes, I was. I was like Sabra, which is a fucking lie. I do not like Sabra. Sabra hummus sucks. I fucking hate Sabra. I never buy that shit. I buy Kirkland brand or I make my own. Sabra sucks. They roasted you. Yeah, exactly. That was the point. It was, yeah, they were saying that they said, Mike, he's a Jew born in Israel. Huh? They were saying we're white and we don't understand Arab culture. That's what they were saying. They were not saying that we were racially inferior. Like, can you imagine the dumbass fucking liar you'd have to be to believe that? And it was a good-hearted roast because guess what? I'm the whitest man on the left. Who's whiter than me? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget that today is Friday, so here's all my links. On my Discord, we have a movie night every Friday, and this week we are watching something really exciting. I remember being excited. Oh yeah, we're watching this movie. Don't leave yet.
How low will the temperature drop tonight?
40 below.
We are not only fighting against the Americans, we are fighting against God himself.
Get down!
Pride can only be earned on the battlefield.
This is one of America's greatest military defeats.
Get back!
Oh shit. So if you want to see the battle at Lake, I think it's Changjin, which is which tells the story of one of America's greatest military defeats. In fact, the Marines still talk about this because this was a battle where the Marines had to retreat, which they have this thing where they're like, we never retreat. And the Marines were forced to retreat and defeat from this battle. So they say, we're not retreating. We were just advancing in a different direction. So this is one of, so this is a very important piece of history told from the Chinese perspective, who are the ones who gave America the bloody nose. So we're going to be watching that tonight. It'll be pretty interesting. How often do you watch a movie where America is the bad guy? Probably never. So if you're interested, come hang out. We're going to be watching that on the Discord at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And now I'm going to send you guys, gals, non-binary pals over to VO. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. And yeah.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants steal your might.
Make sure you show some support for VO.
So hard to your possession.
Right, make sure you show some support for VO. Even if you want to go watch some other stream, just keep her tab open on on your phone or on another tab. VO is this is VO's debut, so this is the best time to help out a comrade. All right, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Appreciate you, and solidarity forever. Free Palestine.
Down the bourgeoisie to see the end of capitalism. We must set Luigi free. demand that health care be provided, as well as housing and food security. We'll build high-speed rails and revolutions with heads of billionaires and solidarity. And sisters, through this struggle we'll carry on. Our gifts up to Central Committee is one step closer to righting the wrong. So comrades, come and rally and remember that Hutch owes Mike $1,500 was fucking right.